School District on Thursday, November 19th at 6:30. There was no closed session. And if I could please have a roll call.
Trustee Crandall,
Here.
Trustee Dawson,
Here.
Trustee Pack,
Here.
Trustee Swanson,
Here.
Trustee Walton,
Here.
Superintendent Porras,
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Shin Bendib,
Here.
Student Advisory Geraldo.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Adoption of the agenda. I understand, of course, we might have a change to the information.
Yes, Madam President, we're just
Discussion?
requesting a reordering on the information discussion section. We'd like to move information discussion item B, which is the facilities project update. We'd like to move that up to A prior to the district update on the response to COVID, only in that the facilities update will probably help answer a number of questions that people might have regarding COVID ahead of time, rather than wait for it afterwards. So if that's okay with the board, we'd like to do that.
That makes sense to me. I'll go ahead and make a motion to do that.
I can second that.
Okay. So we will amend the agenda. And that is a motion by Debbie Crandall, seconded by Brian Swanson. Roll call vote, please. Oh, Mandy, you're muted.
Trustee Crandall?
Sorry about that. Trustee Crandall,
Aye.
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
Trustee Path,
Aye.
Trustee Swanson,
Aye.
Trustee Walton,
Aye.
Student Advisory.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. For those who may not know or have the original agenda, we did not have closed session, so there's no report to give on that. We will now go into the Pledge of Allegiance. If I can get the flag, and I will lead it off. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now we will go to communications. Written communication. Board, we only had a short week since our last meeting, so I do have a couple things here. We received concerns about the distance learning requirements, safety concerns regarding COVID. We received a tech update today. Thank you very much. And I can't read my writing. We received an email regarding the conditioning pods at the high school. And the community service item that we have again on the agenda tonight. Board, is there anything else that I missed?
I think you got it all covered, at least for what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Board member comments. Gabby, we'll start with you.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so I have quite a few updates. Last Friday, the senior parent group put on a senior snack drive-thru for some of the seniors, and I attended that. That went really well. It was really sweet. I thought it really helped boost the morale. So we got some gift bags. We had a few little items in there, as well as some spirit items. So that was really great, and we had a pretty good turnout for that. Currently, we're participating in Movember at the high school, which is where you either grow a mustache for the month of November, or you can run or walk 60 miles in support of awareness for men's mental health, and then also in the fight against prostate cancer. And then we are also working on a communication audit right now as a leadership class. So basically just looking for ways, especially being online where we don't see people in person every day, we're looking on ways to help spread information through all levels of the PGHS community. We're also still working as a welcoming committee to help welcome new students to the district, to the high school. So last Friday, also leadership put together some gift bags, and we hand delivered them to everyone's houses, all the new students' houses, to help them feel more welcome and make sure like everyone feels like they belong here and feels more comfortable. And we're going to be continuing our work on that, hoping to send maybe some emails and see if we can get any Zooms or any other activities that help encourage new student participation. Also, we're putting together a video bulletin to help with the information and help keep everyone well informed, even online. And on Tuesday, we are holding an open mic. I believe it's Tuesday at 7. It's an open mic night on Zoom as an opportunity for members of the PGHS community to share words, poetry, music, and just anything to help them kind of relax and express themselves creatively. And then we have our first, technically, an online spirit day. We're doing in conjunction. It actually started with the A wing, like with the office at the high school. They're planning on doing a pajama day on Wednesday. So we kind of hopped on that train and thought it'd be a good opportunity to help get some student involvement for everyone. So we have that planned for next Wednesday, the 25th. And I believe that's all I have right now.
Wow.
Wow, you guys are very busy. That's a wonderful report. Would you mind repeating the open mic time?
Of course. It's at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, the 24th, I believe.
And is that to the public or just high school students?
Mr. Hackers is mostly setting it up, but I believe it is open to the public.
Okay, thank you. Okay, back to the board member comments. I will start off. I first want to thank Trustee Dawson for covering for me last week. My son got married, so I was absent, and I hated to miss the meeting, but I appreciate you covering. And I did listen to the video recording, so I'm caught up to speed on what happened and what was said. And that's it for me. Christy? Hold on, Christy, you're muted.
I want to start by saying that it's great to have Gabby give such a thorough and deep thing about what's going on at the high school. It's like old times, that there's a lot of action, a lot of activity. So that is absolutely wonderful. I would say the thing as we head towards Thanksgiving that I feel so thankful about is all the news this week, which affects us so tremendously, about the vaccines that are coming forward. It's 1, then it's 2, then it's 3. And I think with the things we've all had to deal with, from staff to students, there's a feeling that there's some light at the end of this tunnel, which has gone on so many months, I think, than most people thought it would in the beginning. So it feels like we're headed in a direction that there will be normalcy coming soon. And I think Gabby kind of highlighted that tonight with all the good stuff happening at the high school. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Christy. John Paff?
I wanted to thank Principal Garcia for sending out the photo of the first day of conditioning. That was really nice to see. That's it for now. Thank you very much. Oh, and congratulations, Debbie. So, congratulations to your son.
Thank you. Brian?
Couple of things. On Tuesday, I participated in kind of a new candidate Q&A that was put together, and it was really fascinating. I'm just going to quickly call out the names, and I hope I didn't miss anybody who took the time. We went over time, but it was me and newly elected soon-to-be trustee Swanson, no relation, on that call. But it was, of course, Dr. Porras and Song and Ani Silva and Claire and Stephanie Lip, both Matts, Kelly and Binder, Mr. Mejia, Billy Mankey, Barbara Martinez, and gosh, I hope I got everybody. But it was enlightening and educational, and watching everybody work together. One of the takeaways that I got from that was seeing, when we talk about together, how intertwined everybody is. It was great to see that, and also to see the enthusiasm that everybody has for the work that they do. And it made me feel really good about the next 4 years. So there's that. And then I think it was Wednesday. So yesterday I participated as a sort of a guest speaker with Barbara Priest's concert band class. And there were 40 kids on screen. And over the course of about 50 minutes, we went from Beethoven to the Beatles to the Rolling Stones to EDM to Hendrix burning his guitar on stage in Monterey to all over the place. And the kids were super engaged, and it was so much fun and so thrilling to be a part of that. So I wanted to thank Ms. Priest for putting that together too. I really want to do that again and get in there with other classes and do that sort of thing. It was great fun, and I hope they learned something. I certainly did from some of the kids. One of the kids, even when they asked me about the bands that I represented, and I mentioned the Spin Doctors, pulled up a Spin Doctors tape, a cassette tape. I was like, oh my God. So anyway, that's all I got. Thank you for letting me ramble on.
That's good.
Thank you, Brian. John Walton?
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, just wanted to let the board and public know that one of the things, Debbie, that you asked me to do was represent the board on the Pacific Grove Housing Advisory Group. So we had another meeting today following up on some of the work they've been doing with the Pacific Grove City Council and community in kind of forming the plan on where that's going. I think there'll be a lot more information coming out. They're putting together a vision statement and documents that they'll share out. We stress that communication with the community is really critical so that people have an understanding about why affordable housing is so important in a community to build a strong and diverse community. So I'm excited that that's going forward and hope to have more information for the board in the future.
Nice.
Thank you, John, for that report and attending that group. Okay, superintendent report, Dr. Porras.
Thank you, Madam President. Actually, I'm going to defer mostly to the report for a little bit later today since we got a lot to cover. But I just simply wanted to take a moment to wish everybody a restful and peaceful Thanksgiving break that's coming up next week, and everyone absolutely deserves it. From all of the teachers and administrators and classified folks working so hard every day, to the parents who are also doing their very best to be classroom teachers at home and trying to make all of this work out, that we can all find a little peace and a little bit of time to be with those that are closest to us, and wish everyone that. So other than that, I'll defer my comments till later in the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, PGUSD staff comments, non-agenda items. If you'd like to share something with the board, you can raise your hand, and you do that by clicking the participants in the middle of the bottom part of the screen. And I will wait just a few seconds. Okay, Larry Hackquist.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the question regarding the Tuesday night open mic night. This is something that we just came up with in my poetry club, and in collaboration with the leadership class. We wanted to create a little forum for students to share their talents, read a little bit of poetry. I have uploaded a link to our Google document, which is our new form of communication that goes out to all the students of PGHS. And it's supposed to go out on in homeroom. Next week, we have homeroom on Wednesday instead of on Monday. So we are gonna shoot it out via Instagram, and you need to have a PGUSD account to log in, and then we'll take as many people as want to come. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ani Silva.
He's muted there.
Am I ready?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, hello everyone. I have great news. I just want to say that our learning continuity and attendance plan was approved by our county and the state of California. And I just want to read this little piece because I think this is so important. It says, your district and community have demonstrated tremendous resilience during these ever-changing times. We extend our appreciation to each and every one of the educators in your district who continue to provide unfailing support for students and families to ensure high quality continuity of learning. And my point in reading that is that the truth is that this plan captures the efforts of our heroes, our teachers, our classified staff, our principals, our administrators at our district office working together. Just, you know what? I mean, we're coming together to make sure that we have everything needed and in place to support our students. And so I'm so proud of all of us coming together and putting this plan together, and that it was approved, because we did what they expected, and I would say we superseded
Yes.
what was expected. So I'm very pleased to announce that. And I'm just so grateful to our team, our teachers and administrators and classified staff, all of us. So that's it.
Well, and thank you for all your work and your team also.
Yeah.
Couldn't have done that without your efforts.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I am not seeing any other hands for staff comments.
President
So
Crandall,
will-
I actually have my hand up. For whatever reason, my participant hand icon is not
Okay.
present for me to click on. So if I
Please,
may.
go ahead.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. My name is Buck Rogaman. I'm the principal at Forest Grove, and I just wanted to let the school board know that throughout this entire week, Forest Grove and Robert Noun have been doing their parent conferences. And just like everything this year, these are parent conferences unlike any that have ever been done in the past. And as the principal of the school, I just want to say how proud I am of our teachers for getting the report cards ready, getting their data reports ready for the parents, and to share the progress that the students have been making. A lot of those reports that we've seen with regard to students' reading ability are showing some wonderful growth. And in a time where teaching has been challenging, to say the least, to see our numbers growing has really been an inspiring thing for me as the principal of the school, as well as the feedback that we've gotten from our parents through these conferences that we've had with our staff. And finally, I just wanted to remind all of the Forest Grove parents that on this Tuesday night at 5 o'clock, we are going to have a Zoom meeting, principal check-in. And I know that we're going to go over some of the reopening plans a little bit later on this evening, but that will be the ideal time for you to ask me, the principal of Forest Grove, any questions that you might have about reopening our schools. President Crandall, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rose.
President Crandall?
I just
Yes.
want to inform that all co-hosts who would like to comment, mostly the site administrators, they don't have the raise hand feature as they have been made co-hosts. So
okay.
they have the ability to unmute themselves though.
Okay.
So Debbie, what I was going to say is exactly that. If you are a host or co-host, you can't raise hand, but what you could do is give a thumbs up.
Oh, and I see Buck is a co-host. I did not know that. Okay, thank you. That's good to know. Okay, well, that said, I am not seeing any other hands and no other cues. So I will continue on with if individuals desiring to address the board. Any item of interest to the public will be heard. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes with a total time of 20 minutes per agenda item. Public comment will also be allowed for each agenda item prior to board action. This meeting is a business meeting of the board conducted in public. Please note the Brown Act limits the board's ability to respond to public comment. The board may choose to direct items to administration for a future agenda. Anybody that is wanting to address the board, go ahead and please, and it's not a co-host, can please raise your hand by clicking the participants icon. And I have Mrs.
Mrs. Chavez had raised her hand while you were speaking, so I think she's part of staff comments.
Okay.
Different Mrs. Chavez.
Oh,
It is?
we'll find out. Mrs.
Okay.
Chavez.
I'm the other one, not the staff one.
Okay.
Oh, okay, yes.
It's
So
all
this is-
confusing.
This is
But
individuals desiring to address the board then, not staff comments.
That's it.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Got it.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I wanted to see what the district's expectations are regarding students and homework over the Thanksgiving break. I asked this because on Veterans Day, some teachers were assigning homework at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and expected that the students have it completed by 10 o'clock the next morning. My daughter did not check Google Classroom until bedtime and was frustrated knowing that she might not be able to complete the assignment, which was assigned on Veterans Day. We did reach out to the teacher, and the teacher defended their stance to assigning homework on Veterans Day because it was a part of the accelerated learning. As a parent, I would like to know if I'm to expect homework over Thanksgiving and the holidays. And I really would like to know what the board policy is about assigning homework on holidays. And it's just kind of frustrating, especially since it was defended by the teacher.
Okay, thank you. Well, we do have a policy, and we can get that to you. And we'll also, I'll ask to cover this on our COVID report, just because it's part of the whole distance learning. So thank you. Okay, so next up is Jessica Guzzi.
Hello.
Hi.
I am here to present on an agenda item, but I figured I should raise my hand now in case I wasn't allowed to unmute or chat or anything. So my name is Jessica Guzzi. I'm the director of Monterey Bay Charter School. So I'm here to present on your agenda item about the building project.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when, let's see, we are going to get to that very shortly. That is, I believe, our item D on action. So we have a few items before that, but it's good to know that you're here. So I'll make sure that you get invited back.
Thank you.
When we get, thank you. Okay, I'm seeing no other hands. I'm just going to pause for a minute. Make a note real quick. Okay, so moving on, consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and or may have been discussed at a previous board meeting. There are no discussions on these items unless a member of the board has a specific question or request an item to be removed. Approved items are considered in full and adopted as recommended. Board, are there any items of question on the consent agenda? Christy?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Brian? I mean, John Paff?
Sorry. Go ahead. That's
I went out of order. John Paff?
No.
Okay, Brian?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay. John Walton?
None.
None? Okay. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, I'll second. So I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Christy Dawson, seconded by Debbie Crandall. Roll call vote, please.
Sorry, I think we might have public comment.
Oh.
I'm not sure.
Oh, yes, I am supposed to ask for that. Thank you, Mandy. Carolyn Swanson?
Good evening, Carolyn Swanson. Thank you for taking my question. I had a question about consent item D, the contract for services with Psych Ed. My question was about the, in the packet, it said the funding was coming from that from unfilled special ed teacher salary. And I believe that's the unfilled position at Forest Grove. And I wanted to find out, I know that the board approved that position. I think it was in 2017, and I haven't seen that position filled. It's been vacant, I think, for at least a school year. And I was wondering if we're going to fill it, and if we're not going to fill it, is that something that the board says we're not going to fill, or is that something that does a position just kind of magically disappear? I guess this is my question. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So this is consent. I can ask Director Davies if she is on. If
Let's
this
pull
is
it,
something.
please.
Okay.
What's that?
If we're going to respond, let's pull it. In fact,
No, I'm here.
Okay. Well, John, if she can answer very briefly, fine. If not, I agree, we'll pull it. Director Davies, is this position that is referring to, is that because we don't have the need, or what is the story there?
This position is a shared position between Forest Grove and Robert Down. And we had some movement within our special education department that became kind of like a domino effect. And so people moved into other positions and left this one open. So the person that was filling this position moved into the new new SDC position at the high school. What was a new RSP position? So this has only been open since the beginning of the school year. It's posted on EdJoin indefinitely. We do not have viable applicants. And I'm working with 2 different agencies right now to see if we can get a contracted person, hoping to get somebody to start in January. So this is the reality of education, is that there's a certain window of time in which people are available. It usually starts in March, and then the window starts to close towards the end of June. And then when you have positions that open up suddenly during the school year or right before the school year, because of the shortage in our profession, typically the people that are available are not folks that could really support our needs. And so anyway, that's where we are with it. And this is to help provide some relief to the special ed teachers that need some assistance with assessments, because they are stretched in their duties at the present time. Okay. And this was actually something they requested.
Okay, thank you. Board, are there any further comments on that or any other consent agenda item? Going once. Okay. So Christy, does your motion still stay?
Yes.
Okay.
My motion still stands.
And so does my second. And John, did you have something to say?
No, I just said second. I didn't hear your second.
Oh, okay. Okay, so no other public comment. Sorry for that. And we have a motion by Christy Dawson, seconded by Debbie Crandall. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Trustee Walton?
Aye.
Student advisory?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That passes 5-0, and that was the consent agenda. Okay, on to action discussion. These next two items were continued from last meeting. And the first one is the Pacific Grove High School and Community High School waiver for the community service hours. And Principal Garcia, are you with us?
I just unmuted him.
Thank you.
Or asked him to unmute.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, good.
So has this changed from last meeting? The proposal is to waive the seniors and allow 12 hours for the 9th, 10th, and 11th. Is that?
That is that is the original request. And I know at the last meeting, I stated that I'd be willing to withdraw the 12-hour reduction for our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors at this time, to perhaps address next school year if needed. Definitely the request for the seniors, I feel is very important, and I do ask that that be passed this evening.
And if I recall right, you said there was about 50% that had not met their 48 hours.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's 50% at PG High, and it is 90% at Community High.
Okay. 90% that has or not?
Have not.
Has not. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Board, any further questions or discussion? Christy?
Well, I absolutely see the need for this for seniors. There's nothing on the horizon right now that would allow them to move forward easily. Some people might have certain connections that might work, but I'm 100% in favor of doing that. I don't think 12 hours in a full calendar year of getting things done is overwhelming. So I wouldn't mind waiting on the lower grades to kind of see what transpires in the next several months. But for seniors, I take whatever off their plate we can to help them have less stress and anxiety about getting through this year.
Okay, thank you, Christy. John Path, I'm going to pause for a second and go to our student representative. Gabby, did you have anything that you would like to add to this item?
I agree. I think it's a really good idea because obviously we see the percentages of people that haven't, of seniors even this year who haven't met it. I think it'd be really helpful, especially considering everything else going on. It would help out a lot to reduce that. Again, I'm unsure how it might impact the lower grades, depending on how long this goes, but I feel that if the seniors are at least getting this removed, then maybe some of the other classes would be too, because if seniors don't have the opportunity to do it this year, then no other grades have the opportunity to do it this year as well. So I think it should apply to everyone across the board, but that's just my take on it.
Okay, well, that's an important take, so I appreciate that. Okay, John Path?
Yeah, I'm not willing to let this go at this point. The fact is, getting some community service has been a requirement for a long time. Certainly the seniors were aware the first 2.5 years of their career here, and 48 hours is not really a tremendous amount actually over that period of time. But also, even those who have none should be able to get 4, 8 without undue problem. Go down to the beach and pick up cigarette butts for 4 hours, and you're alone, you're not violating anything, have someone sign it off. You can do that over Thanksgiving weekend, and it's an hour a day. So no, I think at this point, this is, we're premature in setting this up, and if we pretend that we're gonna open in January, February, March, there's more time available after that.
Okay, so that last part, you are recommending for it to come back in January, February?
Well, if in March we are still DL, then one would say, okay, now we have absolutely, put ourselves in a position. But I think with a little creativity, someone should be able to get, 8 hours in actually any given month,
Mm-hmm. So then it's safe to assume that you are not in favor of the lower grades having any change as well.
I am not in favor of the lower grades having a change, not at this time.
Okay. Okay, Brian?
Yeah, I'm in favor of moving forward with it as presented. First of all, I think for the seniors in particular, of course, it's like they're trying to take this off their plate. It's been hard enough for everybody. I don't expect things are going to loosen up anytime soon. Is hopeful or I'm not actually. Hopeful is not the wrong word. As much as I would like for things to change and wish they would, I don't see them changing, and I don't see this getting any easier for anybody. And then, as Gabby had pointed out too, it's like, if we take, I know there are some students who early on in their high school career would just want to knock this out, and who could do that or would do that if they were able to. But most of the options have been taken off the table for them. So I don't have any problem with it being presented or moved forward the way it's been presented already.
Okay, thank you. John Walton?
I would support the recommendations for both A and B stands.
Okay. Okay. For me, I agree with the seniors having that waived, the 9th, 10th, and 11th. I would kind of like that to come back. But then on the other side of it, I know how I would do it is split it up or do it all like in 9th and 10th grade, and they don't maybe have that option right now. So I would also, thought that said, I would also be in favor of approving it as is. But I will open this up to public comment. You can raise your hand. by clicking the participants, or any co-host can speak. Okay, seeing no hands. There's a hand, Mrs. Chavez. Go ahead.
Sorry, working on the technology here. It's Mr. Chavez this time. Sorry.
Hi. Okay.
Hi. I would just like consideration for the board in terms of information that's obviously being shared out publicly in regards to any vaccinations. And the reality of that being that the vast majority of any Americans won't see this until June or July, and the board to consider that in their decision making for this particular item. We need to do everything that we can to keep our children safe, and I would like the board to consider that and the recommendation of the school. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Carrie Serpa.
Hi. I'm just talking as a parent right now because obviously I don't teach high school, but life is really hard for kids, and I don't have a senior, but I think if we can make things easier for kids and seniors who didn't get their community service done, let's just make it a little easier, okay? It really would be a nice thing to do because it's hard right now. It's hard on kids, and it's hard on parents, and if they didn't plan it out or for whatever reason they didn't get all their community service done, let's give them a break because it's one thing we can do.
Thank you. Okay, Harrison Schramm.
Hi, this is actually Sarah Schramm, his wife. I'm a parent of both a middle schooler and a high schooler. I also coordinate a food pantry locally here in Pacific Grove. And I certainly appreciate wanting to reduce the number of hours for seniors this late in the game, but I'm not so sure that 9th, 10th, and 11th graders should have their hours reduced. Quite honestly, having the help of several high school students throughout the pandemic has made the biggest difference between us being able to feed people in the community throughout this. We're doing it very socially distanced, wearing masks, using lots of precautions, but I've got these high schoolers unloading trucks from the food bank with the food that now goes into the hands of a lot of our community members. And I think that my organization is not the only one that has creatively come up with solutions to utilize younger members of our community. It's just a matter of reaching out and asking some of the not-for-profits, because we lost between 50 and 60 volunteers that could no longer come in because they were high risk. So I know that my program is not alone. So speaking as both a coordinator that utilizes volunteers, but also as a parent, I think it is possible for especially the younger grades to get those kinds of hours, especially when there are easy opportunities too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have another Mrs. Chavez. I'm not sure if it's the same Mr. as before or somebody else. Go ahead.
Lynn Chavez. I'm in freshman right now. I'm a freshman.
Oh, hi.
So I know it's really hard to be able to get all my work done. Sometimes I actually break down with the amount of homework I have. And I know we're on a quarter system, so it's a little faster paced, but it's really hard to get out and do stuff.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Okay. I'm seeing no other hands.
Madam President, if I may, when
yes, please, of course.
I just wanted to add something to the conversation when Mr. Garcia and I spoke about this initially. One other idea to keep in mind, and perhaps affects the seniors more than anyone else. One thing we do know is that the pandemic does not affect families equally. We have some families that it affects much harder, and students have less opportunity to leave their home to be able to go do in the community service that they might otherwise have been able to do had we been wider open, with their parents being perhaps put in a situation where they're not allowing their children to go out of the home because of other needs for the family. So I think the equity issue for some of our families came up in this conversation as well, and realizing that diverse impact that inequitable impact was also something to be considerate of.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board for any additional discussion or comments. Christy.
Well, I just think I stand by what I said before. I think there's absolutely equity issues, time issues right this moment. But if somebody is a 9th grader and after this is resolved, which I don't think will be in 2 years, I think it will be, even if it's by the end of the freshman year for that student, they still have 3 years to complete this. So I hate, I would not like to see it go all the way down. I'm happy to revisit that if we want to do it at a later time due to when is COVID officially over and we're kind of more normal. So I'm not willing to do this for personally 9th, 10th, and 11th, but I absolutely am for seniors. So.
And Christy, I want to make sure that I understand for the 9th, 10th, and 11th, the recommendation is just to reduce it to from a total of 48 to down to 36. So they still have to do 36 through their high school career, not waive it all together.
I absolutely understand that.
Okay, all right, thank you. John Paff, anything additional?
No, I think we're thinking too narrowly in terms of what community service is. Again, at this point, if a parent signs off that someone has done a couple hours, that has always been, quite frankly, perfectly reasonable. And there are things that are necessary. And while it might be an equity issue, Dr. Porras, I think that that's available to virtually everybody. So even a requirement of saying, well, we're not going to cut it to 0, we're going to cut it to 8 is more rational to me.
Okay. Brian, anything else?
Nothing. No, I stand where I was before.
Okay.
I think just I wish there was a way to, it's so different for everybody. And although I do think that all the students that, most certainly the seniors that are trying to figure out just how they're going to navigate this year and how are they going to figure out college and what's happening in the lower grades with their SATs and all that stuff. This is an easy yes to take it off their plate on down the line through the grades too. And this should be just an easy yes. I'm really quite surprised that it's as protracted a discussion as it is.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. John Walton, anything further from you?
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. I agree. It is perhaps along with what Dr. Porras is saying, somewhat of an equity issue. I don't think we can, force parents to tell their children that they have to volunteer at any grade level if the parents are uncomfortable with that. Nor do I think, we should just do lip service to having the parents pretend that their children, did community service just to check the box. I'm along with Trustee Swanson. I'm surprised that we're debating this so much since we've waived so many of the other requirements. This is the sword we're going to fall on and fine tune this to death, when I think community service, while it's a noble thing, is not the core perhaps of the educational system. While I think it's a great tradition, and I think a lot of us as parents and as students are eager to do that, I don't think it's something we should force on the community at a time like this. I understand, some of the concerns people have about, well, we can't predict the future. And I think we're all hopeful for a future. We can always revisit this and add hours back in the future if we want as a board, but I think we're trying to find a fair balance now. And I also don't think, this idea that our students, are critical to the community as free labor during a pandemic is a compelling reason either. So I would continue to support the recommendations as it stands and happy to make a motion on both.
Great. And I will second. I want to add, though, that I appreciate the administration bringing this to us, because it is, as public comment mentioned, it is something we can do. So I am seconding your motion, John. So with that, John Walton made a motion to approve this as presented. I second. Debbie Crandall second. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
No.
Trustee Paff?
No.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Trustee Walton?
Aye.
Student Advisory?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That passes 3-2. Okay, next item is, and thank you, Principal Garcia, for that. Next item is the same item basically, but for the middle school. And on this, Mr. Roach, are you with us?
I am. Thank you very much, trustees. Yeah, this is going to be very similar to what Principal Garcia had. It would be nice. I would like the board to consider waiving the 16 hours requirement for promotion for the 8th grade level. And I would also like the board to consider a reduction in that requirement for our 6th and 7th grade students from 16 hours to 12 hours.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to the board. This is the same item, different school. I don't know that there's any further discussion, but Christy, anything else from you?
I just have a question for my personal knowledge. I know previously in the district I worked, there was a community service coordinator that everything was very official. Just Mr. Roach, if a student helps in the yard of their home or they go out and pick up cigarettes, does any of that count? As he was talking about beach cleanup, where would you typically find community service for little guys?
That's a great question. So our coordinator is Ms. Lawrence, and we really want to push for our students to serve nonprofits. So if a student is working in a grocery store that their parents own, we don't count that. But if they're donating their time washing and shampooing dogs at the SPCA or something like that, we absolutely do count that time. There's a wonderful organization called NCL, the National Charitable Organization. They contact us quite a bit, and we really get the vast majority of our hours from students working the Butterfly Bazaar and those kind of PG-esque events where they get to interact with the littles and have a great time with that. But you'd be surprised. There's a number of organizations that we either outreach to or contact us looking for volunteers. We are, obviously 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, so we're not able to offload pallets of food or anything like that, but we can certainly give little kids a prize at the library for reading 5 books.
Okay, I'm confused on the last one. They get, what's with the reading of the 5 books? How a kid can get.
Or say they're manning little booths at the Butterfly Bazaar, and that those funds go to support like local schools and stuff like that, where they volunteer their time and they help give prizes to little students.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Thank
Christy,
you
you're
for
good?
helping me.
Okay.
Sure.
John Peth, anything else on the middle school?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing, right? We're a little premature in calling it, and at the same time, I think there's plenty out there. And Mr. Walton, I disagree. It's not that parents are signing off falsehoods. They're signing off when someone actually does it. And in fact, if that comes down to, as I said, cleaning up trash off the beach for an hour and walking with your child to do it, that's an hour of community service, and that's legit. And there's tons of things like that. One of the things that immediately comes to mind is, when was the last time anybody raked underneath the stadium? That is legit community service. You would be serving the school district. It's hard to do. It's not, painfully hard. I don't want to climb under there, but it's something that could be done, and it can be done individually. So I'm still, this is not necessary at this point in time.
Okay. Brian?
No, I've got nothing more to add. I'm in favor of moving it forward.
Okay. John Walton?
My comments are the same on this one as the last one.
Okay, thank you. I'll open this up for public comment. This is the middle school waiving the community service hours for the current 8th grade and reducing for 6th and 7th. If you have a question, you can raise your hand by clicking the participants icon. Okay, we have Angela. Go ahead.
Hi, I have a student at the middle school, and
maybe talk a little bit further away from your mic.
Is that better?
Not really, but let's go and try. Let's go ahead and try it.
How about that?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So I have a student at the middle school, and he definitely needs to complete some more community service hours. He's in 8th grade. We reached out to All In Monterey, and they do have some opportunities for students to volunteer there. We reached out to the Meals on Wheels for seniors, and they are not accepting younger than 18 to assist there. But I just think it would be nice to, maybe if Julie Lawrence is in charge of being organizing these type of events, maybe we could have a page or some sort of memo sent out to the parents stating what opportunities the students could have to volunteer to meet some hours.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Jamie Guthrie. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for taking my question. My question, I'm sorry, I need to just clarify, is this to waive, you said waive the volunteer hours for the 8th grade and reduce for the 6th and 7th?
That is correct. We would waive the whatever remaining they have for the 8th graders and reduce it to 12 total for 6th and 7th.
And this would be over the 3-year period of middle school or just annually?
Well, for 6th graders, and Mr. Roach, please chime in anytime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but for 6, go ahead. Sorry, you go
No,
ahead.
it's okay.
It's your
The
place.
3-year requirements for promotion are 16 hours, unless you join us in your 7th or 8th grade year, and then they're prorated down. So it would be 16 hours over 3 years at the middle school.
Okay, and the proposal is to reduce that 3-year requirement for the 6th graders, say, to 12 hours.
That is correct.
And so that is assuming, like, with COVID, say, spanning out to June, kind of what our lockdown situation, until we get a widespread vaccine. So that would be average of 6 hours per year during the 7th and 8th grade years. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah. It's more trying to compensate for a loss of opportunity at this point. I know our 7th graders weren't able to do anything the 4th quarter of last year and at least half of this year. But I do want everyone to know, though, that our kids do a tremendous amount of outreach. And I know once we are able to interact with one another in a normal manner, they will be more than happy to donate their time as much and often as they possibly can.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Okay, thank you for your comment. Okay, I am seeing no other hands. I will bring it back to the board. Board, anything further? I'll just leave it open for a couple seconds.
Yeah, I feel with the little kids, it is absolutely harder. There's less time and there's less opportunity for them to get around on their own. So I'm going to vote for this one.
Okay, thank you. And anything else from anybody else? Going once?
Hey, Debbie.
Yes, go ahead, John.
I just want to make it clear, I think volunteering is a noble thing. And I think any parent or child that still wants to volunteer, I think that's a wonderful thing to do for the community and for our school district. I just don't think we need to make this about creating the stress of will you graduate or be promoted. I don't see the benefit of trying to take a relatively positive thing like volunteering and doing good for the community and putting the stress on the families of students of somehow now it's not something you want to do, it's something you have to do. And I think that's where I'm at on this. So I'm going to vote in favor of the recommendation by the administration.
Okay, thank you. I do want to give everybody equal opportunity. So John Paff, anything else?
No, I really appreciate Trustee Walton's comments there. Thank you.
Okay, Brian?
I'd like to echo what Trustee Pass said about Walton's comments and putting it much better and more eloquently than I certainly have. So thank you, Trustee Walton.
Okay. That said, I will make a motion to approve the waiver at board policy and regulation 6142.4 learning through community service for Pacific Grove Middle School as presented.
Second
I'll
it.
second that.
Okay. Motion is made by David Crandall, seconded by Christy Dawson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall,
Aye.
trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Path,
No.
trustee Swanson,
Aye.
trustee Walton,
Aye.
student advisory.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That passes 4-1. And thank you, Mr. Roach, and I'm sure Mr. Cavani as well for that. Okay, moving on to next item is action discussion C, approve legal fee agreement with Davis and Young. Now this is a particular case that we are hiring this attorney firm. Is there any thing else that you would like to add, Assistant Superintendent Chin Bin Dip?
I don't think so. Thank you, President Crandall. I think we spell out all the detail in the board cover. This one thing just to highlight is the fiscal impact. Hopefully this will be resolved soon and, cleanly. If not, as we said, we put down if it's not settled or somehow dismissed or proceed to trial, the cost can be a lot higher, 4 or 5 times higher. And the other thing is this is of course, obviously we did not know about this and this just happened. And so it was not in the original budget. So hopefully we have some other savings from other areas and we'll have to figure out how to put in the budget for this particular item.
Okay. Yeah, well, let's hope that they can fix that for us quick.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, board, any other comments or questions? Christy? No? Okay.
Not at this time.
Okay. John Path?
All good, thanks.
Okay. Brian?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Okay. John Walton?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Public comment on this item? You can go ahead and raise your hand if you have a comment, question. Okay, I'm seeing no comments right away. We'll bring it back to the board. Since there's no comments, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept this contract.
Seconded.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion made by John Paff and seconded by Christy Dawson. And
Mr.
roll call.
Swanson has to speak quicker. I was even watching your lips.
I guess so. I guess yeah. I'm gonna be quicker off the
Quicker on the
starting
draw.
block.
Yeah, you need your go
Lose
button.
at Jeopardy every time.
Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall,
Aye.
trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Path,
Aye.
trustee Swanson,
Aye.
trustee Walton,
Aye.
student advisory.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That passes 5-0. Okay, our next item is the approval of temporary classroom structure at David Avenue for Monterey Bay Charter School. And I know we had a guest here that would speak to that. So you can go ahead and raise your hand. And when we get to that time, I will call on you. This is an item for our charter. It's actually the charter school is leasing the building on David Avenue, and there is a structure that they need approval for to accommodate for their COVID waiver, I believe. Director Kelly, is that correct, or are there any other items you'd like to add?
That is correct. Right now, we invited them to come and do a small presentation to the board for the approval. So
okay, I
she's
will unmute Jessica, and you can go ahead. You're ready to go.
All right, thank you. I am joined by one of my teachers, Steve Vaden. If the host could unmute him as well. He is our blacksmith teacher and works professionally in his construction company, Vaden Construction. So he's here to answer if you have specific construction questions that I probably can't answer. We are seeking to build the temporary shade structure on an existing concrete pad at the site. And our goal is to move our outdoor wood shop that's currently between two buildings, to move it to the structure. And then that opens up the space in between the two buildings for additional outdoor classrooms. As you are, we are also planning for hybrid learning and thinking about how we can take our educational program outside as often as possible. So your approval will really help us move forward in our planning for our school site to reopen and return. So we're just here to answer any questions. I know Mr. Kelly had a question as far as like, where exactly is this? In the third picture in your packet, you're looking kind of down the field. There's a blacktop area, and then that's where the concrete pad was in existence. So the structure is built except for the roof. So Mr. Kelly requested that we seek your approval before continuing in the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's over by the tree swing, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a question about what you have to do to finish. Is it the roof, or is there any other construction that you have to finish it?
Just the roof at this time. Mr. Vaden, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, that's true. Just the roof.
Okay, thank you. And the concrete pad, I'm curious what that, do we know the history of that? What was that used for? Or
we don't know. We don't think it's been used for a very long time because in the construction we've done so far, we dug it out. It was partially buried. So for how long it's been there, I don't know. Mr. Kelly, I'm not sure if you know.
I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't even know it was there either until you guys discovered it.
Okay. We did. We discovered it on recess duty, and we thought this would be an ideal location for the wood shop because, as you can imagine, there's hammering. Mr. Vaden teaches a blacksmithing class, so it's very loud already between the two classrooms. So we're moving it kind of away. It'll actually be a little further away from the preschool as well in the new location.
It's approximately 200 feet away from the other classes.
You know, and actually that I have another question regarding power. Is there power at that structure?
There's not.
No, there's not. And our wood shop is completely manual.
Oh.
We're a Waldorf inspired charter school. So we have Mr. Vaden, you're gonna have to help me with the names of those pedal machines that they have.
It's a treadle lathe.
Yeah, a treadle lathe. So it's like a foot pedal on an old style sewing machine. So we have no electricity in our wood shop program.
Okay. Very good. Okay, thank you. To bring it to the rest of the board, if there's any questions. Christy?
I think it sounds wonderful, and anything that they're doing to improve the site is feels like a no-brainer. So I support the hammering and good work of young children building.
Thank you. John Paff?
Jessica and probably Matt Kelly, it's listed as temporary. Is the role really temporary, and you intend if in a year to take it down? And then if so, why? Or why not, I guess.
Thank you. All good questions. We are building it under COVID guidelines from the DSA, the Division of State Architect. We included the bulletin in your packet.
Thank you.
So they have sort of lessened their restrictions for COVID emergency. And the projects can be built for up to 3 years, and then you can apply to have them continue on. It's also temporary in that we do hope eventually to move to our new school site at CSUMB at some point in the future. So Mr. Vaden, I don't know if you want to talk about how it's constructed so it can be moved?
Sure. It's entirely bolted and lagged together so that it can be disassembled. It's bolted to the concrete as well with some hardware. So that will also be removable.
It's removable at any time, either if it doesn't
at any time.
for permanent structure under DSA when COVID's lifted, or if we end up taking it with us. We don't know. We don't know.
Basically, John, is what DSA came back, and when COVID hit, they said to California schools, go ahead and build what you need to build to make accommodations for COVID, and then come back to us for approval after you build it. It does say that that you have to have inspection and special testing and through the project to get approval, and then they have 2 different types of approval. Like they said, either a 3-year temporary approval or a permanent approval.
Matt, I guess I'm more along the lines of we're essentially adding a roof to an existing trellis sort of thing. Is that correct?
No, the only thing that was existing there before was the pad. They're building the trellis and the roof to it.
Okay, and there's no reason if 3 years down the road that we would have to take it down. It's good enough to be permanent if we decide such that it's useful to be permanent, correct?
Oh yeah, it's built like a brick house.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they got structural engineering. He's the builder's a contracted license. He's the licensed contractor, so it's built really well. They we just need the inspection on it.
Very good. Mr. Kelly, Jessica, I'm sorry, I don't have your last name up, so I'm just going to go with Jessica. Thank you very much. That's all I needed to know.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Brian?
Well, I'm sure I know the answer to this, but I want to ask it anyway, just so it's out there. There are no, and I think this is a question probably for Dr. Porras or for Song or Matt, but there aren't any liability concerns. Otherwise, we would have already addressed those, right? If somebody gets hurt because of this temporary structure, or a roof falls on somebody's head or something like that, that's already covered in one way or another, right?
I'll have to defer to Director Kelly on that one. I don't know the answer to that directly.
Our liability, it would fall under the charter school's liability insurance.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, let me. Go ahead. Go ahead, Song. I didn't know it was you. Go ahead, Song.
I was just going to say, that's why we bring it to the board, in front of the board. As soon as the board approves it, this falls under the contract now with Monterey Bay Charter. Their insurance will take that on.
Okay. All right. Well, good. So I'm glad I asked.
Sorry, can I piggyback on that too? The DSA approval also really waives the board's liability when DSA approves it as well. So that's why it's important to have on all of our projects to have DSA approval, because if something does happen, we don't have that approval, we open ourselves to huge amount of liability.
Okay, great. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Good question, Brian. Thanks for asking that. John Walton.
Thanks, Debbie. Just a few questions. Some of them already been asked and answered. I appreciate that. So based on the note in the fiscal section of the administrative memo, just to be 100% clear, there's no construction costs that are going to be borne by the district. It'll all be borne by the charter school?
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
We Mr. Vaden has been unable to teach his class this semester due to distance learning. So what we've kind of done to fund the project is bundle his salary, his time. We've had donations from Hayward Lumber to fund the project, and there will be no impact on your district.
Okay, great. Thank you. The way I read the contract, the one concern I do have a little bit related to cost, so is the way the contract is currently worded that once we rent to the charter school a structure, we're responsible for maintenance. So do we need to modify the agreement to reflect the fact that all the maintenance for the structure will be the charter school's responsibility?
I think that's to Song, and we would be willing to amend.
Where do you see that?
The current contract states that all maintenance for facilities rented are the responsibility of the school district.
Yeah, I think that that's probably something that we want to consider. Certainly, because we have gone back to do different maintenance for different parts of all that whole facility, that whole area. So certainly is something we can do. And if you want to make that part of this, certainly you can include that in the motion tonight.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question. There's a section of the contract that speaks to improvement credits. Would this trigger any of that clause in the contract?
I think they have to request that. I think the contract says they have to request those credits.
So I guess the question is to the charter school, are you going to be requesting any credits based on these improvements?
I don't really like credits toward rent, or I'm not familiar 100% with this agreement.
If you construct things as part of the contract, you can request credits if you make improvements to the facility.
I don't think so.
Credits?
I don't think we'll be seeking that. We're just seeking your approval because it will help us greatly in our COVID and hybrid planning.
It will help me form an opinion if you could say one way or the other if you will or won't.
And Mr. Vaden possibly answer that?
There shouldn't be any maintenance to the building, and for the credits, I can't answer since I'm just the teacher.
Okay.
I can answer. We will not. Song, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Well, I think their immediate answer to the improvement is to the premise. I think we read that as structural improvements, the current structures, the current buildings. But obviously, when this contract was formulated years and years ago, we didn't think about, play structure or shade structure. So I think that was the intent, to talk about any improvements like, adding another wing or another room to the current structure. It's not really a play structure. And we perhaps with addendum, we can come back and say, this is not part of improvement credit to the premises. So that's one. Just going back to the original question about whether this is a maintenance to required of the landlord, which is, us, PGUSD. Again, this is again about the structure, about the building, the premises. We didn't say anything that we are liable for anything, improvements of any temporary structures such as this one. Again, we can put it in addendum to come back to the board to clarify this further.
No, thank you, Song. I mean, I just think back to Trustee Paff's point. I'm on the fence whether this is temporary or permanent. I think it's arguable whether it's a structure or not. It sounds like a building to me without walls, which is fine. I just want us all to be clear in the agreement if we go forward, who's responsible for maintenance, and that it isn't going to trigger some request for a future modification to rent or something like that.
No, no. I will answer no.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John.
My question would be, does this need to be stated? I really appreciate that Mr. Walton brought that up, because just looking into the future, can we pass this stating the items that he's bringing to the forefront this evening?
Yes.
Okay.
Make it part of the motion, ultimately.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna open this up to public comment. If there are any comments, you can raise your hand. Seeing no comments from the public, I will bring it back to the board. I think we have our discussion. Is there a motion for this?
I make a motion to pass the temporary building structure as presented, with a change to note that the improvement credit of paragraph 4.3 shall not be invoked, and that the district is not required for additional maintenance under paragraph 7.
I'll second. Gabby, I didn't include you. Do you have any comments?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have a motion to approve with amendments. Mandy, do you have what you need for that documentation of the amendment of the motion?
Kind of, but I can just listen to the audio later if you want.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mandy.
Okay. All right. So I have a motion by John Paff, second by Debbie Crandall. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Trustee Walton?
Aye.
Student advisory?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That passes 5-0. And thank you both for being here to answer our questions.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
So much for having us and approving our project. We'll send pictures of it completed with the woodshop materials.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to our last action discussion, which is the board calendar future meetings. Dr. Porras, is there any change to the calendar?
No, Madam President, no changes unless the board would like to make that. Otherwise, no action is required tonight.
Okay. Board, any changes to the calendar? Christy?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, John Paff?
No change on calendar. Ralph, at such time as we move school from starting in January, are you going to move DO meetings back to Zoom meetings?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand what could you repeat that? Please?
Well, right now, these are still listed in January as DO.
Oh, right. Yes, correct.
But if we're not starting, then in fact, we're probably saying we're not going to go to the DO right away.
Correct, yeah.
So you'll change that at the appropriate point.
Yes, correct.
Thank
We will
you.
do that. Mhm.
That's district office for anybody who is wondering. Brian?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. John Walton?
Nothing.
All right, thank you. Carolyn Swanson, and I don't know if your question is for this item or did I miss it from the last item? Go ahead.
Oh, it's for this item. Thanks for asking. I was wondering, I was looking at the board calendar and for the November 19th meeting, it says that we're going to do a review of special education contracts. I didn't see that on the agenda. Maybe we're kind of loosely this calendar, but I wanted to bring it up and find out.
I can speak to that, Madam President, if you like.
Please, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, the calendar items that are listed are pretty much guidelines. They don't necessarily are going to be items that may come and we may not be able to get them on, or again, may get moved to another. We try to keep it as accurate as we can. Certainly this year it's been really tricky trying to keep up with that as we've been adjusting and readjusting each meeting as we go due to COVID. But this item will come at another time. We just weren't able to get it onto this meeting for today. So it's fairly loose. It's more intended as a guideline than anything else.
Okay, and then, well, I guess if it's just guidelines, I know that we're doing the swearing in of new trustees on the 17th, but is that just considered part of the organizational meeting or is it typically, okay.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you
correct.
so much.
Okay, thank you for your comments and question. Okay, I'm seeing no other hands up. Bring back to the board. Since there's no change, we don't need to vote on this item. So I will continue on to information discussion. And as mentioned on the beginning of the meeting, for anybody that joined late, we are moving the item B, which is facility project update, to A, and in hopes that some of the COVID questions might be answered. So Director Kelly, I will hand it over to you.
All right, thank you. I am going to share my screen. Oops. Great. Can you see that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, so let me get through this pretty fast. The first part of the presentation, and I just kind of want to catch the board up on some bigger projects that we've been doing that are not COVID related. And then the end of the project, I'll hit on the improvements that we've made related to COVID over the last few months, the majority of them mostly over the summertime. We're still doing our Prop 39 project. We do have all of our lights in the interior complete. We're finishing up some exterior lighting. We still have another lift that needs to come in to help us with that. And then we're hoping to have some extra monies left over to redo the HVAC controls at Forest Grove. A couple weeks ago, we did some improvements to the middle school PAC. We originally had this contracted out and ended up having to take it in-house because of COVID, the contractor lost all of his workers. We still had the materials. The owner was still there. So he came down for a day, kind of helped us out. And our crews went ahead and installed a 326 inch diagonal screen, motorized screen, and then the base for a projector. While we were in there on the lower left-hand side, we were able to lower all the house lights and do some repairs to the cranks and to the wires that came down, and then change out all those lights to LED. And then on the middle school custodial staff went ahead and cleaned them afterwards. Just recently, on the right-hand side, you'll see that we had a fixture break, mostly from weather and the bird droppings on it. So we went ahead and decided that we would replace all the lights at the pool at the high school. It was about a week or two project. On the left-hand side, you see some of the guys working on the project. We actually took some of the poles down a little bit and put the lights a little bit lower. While we had the lift, we decided that to reach some of our higher places at the high school, the big gym, the dance hall, the student union. And this is something you'll see here where you see all this rock roof that's kind of trickled down into the gutter. And as we talk about bond projects and roofing projects and what types of things we put in, and these are the types of things that we put in long time ago that created huge maintenance projects with the rock and the gutter. And this is a big reason why you see a lot of the gutters at the high school being eaten away. It is by the rock. So this lift is not cheap, and because they're so high, it's an expensive and long-term maintenance project. At Forest Grove, PTA donated to put in a playground. While they were doing that, we took the opportunity to rebuild the retaining wall and install an ADA ramp into the new playground. The board just approved the placement of the fall material, so that will be coming in the next week or two to complete this project. Our grounds crew was busy the last couple of weeks. They took about a week to clear this section on Signage and Carmel. It was a neighbor requested, along with the police department. The underbrush was getting so thick that it was becoming an issue for a possible area for people to hide. So our grounds crew went in there with some equipment and cleared the area, and looks great. Now on to COVID. So over the last the majority of our work we've been doing is over the last, was at the beginning of the summer and actually through the summer. We have been doing some stuff recently. For instance, these playgrounds, we put some orange fencing up and some signage just came in, and we put the signage up. And basically the orange fencing is to create an entranceway and to create an area where people can line up and there's only a few people or kids playing at a time to keep that social distancing. As per our operations plan, we installed drop boxes at the front office. Each one of our sites has one of these drop boxes that allows parents to drop off things and not have to have that contact with our front office staff. Our hand washing stations are for the most part complete. These two, the top one is a Robert Down and the bottom one is at middle school. These ones are installed because they're interior ones. The ones at Forest Grove and high school are not installed, but they are made. And when the time is right, when we start to prepare to go back to school, those couple of weeks when we have a date, we'll go ahead and install them. Since they're already made, it'll be a quick install. As per our plan too, we've set up isolation rooms. This is one we just recently set up to prepare for the high school students coming back. We plastic the walls, put an area in there for someone that's sick to lay down, and you can't see it, but on the outside there's an area there for some nurse supplies, and this just makes it easy for if we have a student come in. We chose an area where it has an exterior door so they can come in and out through the exterior door, and the plastic makes it easy for us to disinfect after the sick student or staff member has left. Plexiglass barriers, this is just a few of the areas we have these. We have them in most of our administration or admin assistants where they have high contact with the public. And we also have stickers, as you can see there, that direct people where to stand, and some other caution tape or sticker tape that can go down on the ground as well. On the right-hand side, you'll see a picture of ones that we built for some of the testing that SPED was doing. And they're movable, so we can, you know, if there's another place that kids need to go where they're more comfortable, their teacher needs to take them where it's more comfortable, they're able to move that plexiglass to a different location. So Lori Aiello has been helping me out, and it's actually a great case of someone that didn't necessarily without any students there, didn't necessarily have any job duties. So I quickly snatched her up, and she's been taking charge of our employee tracking system through Facilitron. Here you can see this is where each site has this check-in, and they check in on their phone, they answer the questions, and we're able to track who was on site that day. Contractors can use it. Anyone that comes in can use this system, and we know who they are. They can contact us, or we can contact them if there's a positive case. Our operations plan still also lines out mapping. And you may see some of these maps in the next presentation, but we have maps of which direction to go. It's kind of hard to see here, but these maps also indicate how many students can be in each room as well. This is just a little snapshot of each map of how we were going to do some of our entrance plans when we go back to a hybrid model. Signage. So this is another example of some of the signs that you'll be seeing that have been designed, and some of it ordered, some of it's still coming. But these are some of the signs that you'll see for each of the sites. You'll see signs at entryway directing which rooms to go to, like the middle school. And we've tried to incorporate the school, some school spirit into all the signs to at least make it a little bit happier of a place during a pandemic. Our staff has also been helping with lunch service as well throughout this. Right now we have 2 guys dedicated on the days that lunch is being served to help out the lunch service team. So we've been doing that as well. For our HVACs, we've installed all of our MERV 8 filters. If you remember, we did have them as MERV 13, but we had to change when we received that word that our 1-inch filters, the 1-inch filters in our fans would just start burning out our fan because of the airflow or the negative airflow in there. So we did change out all of our filters in the district over the summertime. We've completed all of our maintenance on our dampers and our fans, and we have created a schedule for outside air, and done our preventive maintenance on the windows, and then flushed out all of our HVAC systems, though we may need to repeat that because as some rooms have sat and we haven't had anyone in there for distance learning, we may repeat that in the early winter one more time as we prepare to come back again. For classroom preparations, majority of these will be done in the weeks that are leading up to the opening of school, like as far as laying out furniture or moving furniture. Those are types of things that we anticipate coming the first, or as we lead up to school starting, just as if we're coming out of summer and going into school. we used that last week and a half or 2 weeks to put classrooms back together. We've already flushed all of our water systems to prevent Legionnaire's disease. And then we've received a majority of 2/3 of our Perel hand sanitizer stations and the Perel refills. And those will be installed in areas, in high use areas, and in areas where there's not hand washing stations in classrooms. Our cleaning schedules, those again will be finalized too in the once the educational plan is finalized in those last couple of weeks leading up to school beginning. But the goal is in that schedule is to put as much time as we can into the school day hours, which means moving some of our night custodian hours to the day to help serve with wiping down and cleaning and disinfecting of the classroom. We have received 2 electrostatic guns, and we're expecting 2 more backpacks and 4 more handhelds in the battery backups the first week of December. Last is I want to introduce this. We've kind of talked about it and later come back with more details and the testing that we've been doing. But we've been testing out what I was calling nanotechnology, and the name of it from the company calls it is nano vapor. It's an EPA registered surface protector that is that fights bacteria, fungus, and algae and molds, and it can go onto any hard surface or soft surface, and it basically it allows the control of microorganisms without any type of chemical poisons. And it relies on electrostatic or electrically charged particles that have like a unique spear. So they actually puncture any of those bacteria or fungus and kill them physically. And I want to be clear is that this is not being replaced with our district or our routine cleaning and disinfecting. It's used in conjunction, it's used as a support with our cleaning. It's really meant for those in-between periods from when we clean and when we and when children are in there and when we can't disinfect. So I'm going to try to do this really fast. I kind of want to show a graph here of what we're thinking and what it's really meant for. So as I'm just going to do a little graph right here. So after you disinfect and as there's kids coming into the room, it gets dirtier and dirtier, and then the kids leave, and then we come in and we disinfect, and then that bacteria and those viruses, they come back down to a lower level. What our goal is, and what the goal is, the nanotechnology is really to keep a level that is lower than right here, and then really keep it down at this level without introducing any other chemicals or anything else to the school environment into kids, like another disinfectant. And the testing that we're seeing great results, and we are seeing that it is hanging around here in between these times, and I've been super happy with it. Again, we're still testing it. We want to make sure that there's no any residual effect, or there's nothing that's going to harm anyone, which I know it's not, but that's claiming that it's going to do what it's going to do. So like I said, we're still testing, and we hope that in a couple of weeks we'll have some better answers for the board. So how are we doing the testing? We're using, it's called ATP testing, and I'm not going to say that word because I'll get tongue tied. So I'll just call it ATP testing. And basically is that all living matter has ATP in it, which includes food, bacteria, mold, and other microorganisms. And so this testing, it detects the ATP on a surface. And so we use what's called an ATP bioluminescence monitoring. And it's just a device. So you just take like a swab of it and you put it in this device, and it tells you how much ATP is in there, which then tells me how much of the bacteria and viruses are on that. So it is important to know that ATP does not detect COVID. It does not detect viruses, but it detects any biological residues that COVID would be in. So when we talk about COVID and it being in a droplet form, it's really detecting the droplets, not the COVID itself. when we're testing for that. So when we're testing, we've done testing already. We've done some pre-testing. So we disinfected a room, tested it, applied the nano vapor, and then now we're testing it. And we're probably, I think we're into week 5 or 6 right now of testing. It's supposed to last up to 90 days. I'm hoping that we get 60 days out of it, and those levels don't continue to go up. That's it right now. I want to conclude with, these, it's not, these are solutions. They're not necessarily ideal solutions. They're, we're in this time now where, we're going to do the best that we can, but, in our facilities department, but we can't guarantee that we're going to wipe out COVID in every single classroom, which is, I think it's unrealistic. And I think it needs to be said. But, we're really pushing is, all of these things together is what's going to keep people safer. And that's, mask wearing, social distancing, looking at the HVAC systems and getting fresh air in there, cleaning and disinfecting. And I think the other big one too is really parents monitoring their kids and not sending their kids if they feel like they're sick, or maybe even having questions of them feeling sick. I think elimination of the virus itself is going to be a big step. And that is it.
Wow, that's it.
That is it.
That's so much. Thank you so much. That you guys, I think you've done a fabulous job. I mean, you're going to be a chemist before this is over.
He already is.
Yeah, I have quite a few questions actually, but I want to let our student representative ask if there's any questions she has. Gabby, do you have any questions that you want to ask about this safety?
At this point, I don't really have too many specific questions, but I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to be in person and just like thank you for all the work you guys are putting into making sure it's safe for everyone who goes back. But it looks good to me. But
okay, thank you. I hope we are too. Okay, so the plexiglass that you showed, that's basically portable, but is the plexiglass, where is it available right now? All locations, certain locations, in certain rooms?
We focused mostly with our front office staff, and then also our special ed testing is where all the plexiglass is right now. Okay. Currently, I think we just installed, I think everything we had. We might have 1 or 2 pieces left, but we do not have any more supply of that. It's been pretty easy to get though. When we order it, we can get it usually within about a week to week and a half.
Are we planning on ordering it just anyway, or are we waiting to see what we need, or what's the plan there?
I will order some more to have some on stock. I think it'll be good to have just because we just ran out. But right now like I said, we're just focusing on that front office staff in the testing part of it right now.
Yeah, I think that would be really great to have some on hand.
Yeah,
that we can at least at each site, so we can have it, portable, like you said. The filters that you mentioned that were installed, and I think you also mentioned that we weren't using the ones that you originally wanted to. Are we able to put the MERV 8, I think it said, filters at all locations, or?
We have them. We put them in all locations. Okay. We changed them out, and we do that routinely anyway. We change it out almost yearly. Now we've increased our visual inspections of the filters, and so once we get everything back online, when kids start coming back and we start running those units, we have a plan of first starting off weekly and then bi-weekly of checking those filters, just to kind of check to see how dirty they're getting. We think that we'll probably have to replace them every 3 to 6 months is our anticipation. So we do have another set on hand to replace if we need to replace right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Meeting or two ago, there was a comment about individual rooms that might be outside of the norm, that might need, maybe they're older or maybe they have special size or something. Is there any kind of inventory of all the rooms where students, well, actually everybody would be, that we have identified any kind of outliers of what you haven't done already?
I mean, like things
rephrase
that we
it?
haven't done, like we haven't done anything to.
Well, not that you haven't done anything to, it sounds like you've been very thorough, but I guess what I'm getting at is like, maybe there's a room that doesn't have a vent.
Right.
And what are we doing about that? And does it have a window? Can we use the window?
Mhm.
Does it have doors? That kind of stuff for the outlier kind of rooms. And not just classrooms, but offices and all that as well. I know that's a big ask, but I think if we don't have that, I think it would be a good idea.
No, we don't have it written down. We know it. I mean, we know everything that's out there. So, but it's something we could write down. Like for instance, the high school A wing is on a boiler system, and it's not on any fans. It's just a boiler. So the only fresh air you're getting there is when you open up windows. And so we have some of those, like the adult schools, kind of the same way. They just have in classroom units, though they have a fan, but they're not bringing in fresh air. They're just recirculating the air that's in the classroom. So yeah, we do. I mean, I can put something together really easily, but right now we don't have it written down just because we know it.
Yeah, and I think it might help definitely the staff feel more secure about their particular place. So that'd be great if you could. The Electro Guns, you said we have two. What are those exactly for?
The electrostatic guns, they electrically charge the disinfectant that's coming out. And so what it does is it creates this mist and just kind of wraps itself around furniture. And so it's a much more efficient and faster way of disinfecting. And so we purchased that in anticipation if we had to change out classrooms really fast, or if we needed to disinfect an area super fast and real thorough, we can do that. It also allows us it gives us some extra time to clean before we disinfect, which is kind of that 2 or 3 step process of really disinfecting, is cleaning first and then disinfecting. So it gives us some extra time on the cleaning end.
It sounds like I can picture like Ghostbusters, but
it's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, I thought so.
It looks more like a stormtrooper gun.
Oh, cool. I have one more question. You mentioned some of what you were presenting is in between, right? Not like a heavy duty cleaning, but in between maybe classes or days or something. And is the who was expected to doing that cleaning? Is it the maintenance, or is it teachers, or do we not know yet?
Right now, with the way the schedule is, we think that custodians will be able to clean everything, clean the classrooms and everything. There may be some areas where teachers may want to wipe down throughout when there's kids in there, or just in different time, maybe before the custodian gets there, and we're more than welcome to do that. But we feel like that with kind of the way the trend of the educational schedule is going, with some of the things that we have in place, that we'll be able to clean everything when it needs to be cleaned and disinfected.
Okay, great. It's a little premature, but it's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Christy, do you have any questions? You can unmute yourself.
The thoroughness of the report was wonderful. I appreciated the slides. The isolation of a 6th student in the high school that you had. I mean, part of the good part, I think, about the distance learning is it's allowed you and staff an ample amount of time to really go through things in preparation of when the kids come back. And that's very evident in the work that you did. So I really appreciate it. And the colors, the explanations made it easy to see. If a year ago I had seen the hand sanitizing, hand washing station, and all these things, it's so bizarre, but so necessary now. So thank you for such a thorough report. I really appreciate
it. John Path?
No questions, no comments. Thank you.
Okay. Brian?
The couple of questions that had popped up, I think were mostly answered. I was wondering about spare plexiglass, and it sounds like that's already in the works because you never know when you might need it. And although I don't really expect that you've overlooked anything, it's still always good to have. And I appreciate the greater explanation on the MERV 8 filters. So, and again, just to thank you for going beyond, like when you talk about flushing out the water systems because you're concerned about Legionnaires. I don't know anything about Legionnaires other than it was a thing at some point in the 70s, I think, but that you had the wisdom to think about that and to make sure that was taken care of too. It just demonstrates that what we know anyway about you and your team is that you're on it. So thank you for being on it. I appreciate it.
Thank
you. We all do.
Great. Thanks, Brian. John Walton?
Thanks, Debbie. Thank you, Director Kelly, for the good report. I appreciate all you and the staff and the administration are doing to make the school safe. I know a lot of the teachers are teaching there now, and a lot of the administration is working on site. So I appreciate that. And I think you're doing a good job. I would just, I guess, express my opinion, having worked on sites now since the beginning, in administrative buildings, in hospitals, and in jails where my staff work. I think you're doing a good job being thoughtful and responding to people's concerns about, surface areas. And while I appreciate a lot of people have a high degree of concern about that, everything we've seen in our county and from the discussions I've had with the school districts in our county, more of the emphasis has been here on airborne rather than surface contamination. So, I just hope you keep that in mind as we go forward. We've been fortunate as a district to have the availability of CARES money to do a lot of this initial work. I don't know or haven't heard that there's going to be any additional state or federal funding to carry us through this next surge. And, I just hope we plan wisely for spending our money where the risks are greatest as we go forward.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, we are focusing on the airborne and then we've had some talks on the startup committees about how we change out the air in each one of our classrooms and which classrooms, we can bring in fresh air easier than other classrooms. So we are definitely having those discussions, and teachers are, they're pushing me to really get those air systems clean and those classrooms clean with the air too as well. So like I said, it's a combination of all of it. Not one thing alone is gonna do the job.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to open this up for public comment, if there is any. Okay, Kylene Brousseau. Go ahead.
Hey there, Kylene Brousseau. I'm a teacher at Forest Grove, and I was under the impression that outside of each of the classrooms, at least at the elementary level, that there would be like a hand sanitizing station, and that there would be a policy of like sanitize as you come into the classroom and sanitize as you come out, because as we know, a lot of children are not always the greatest with washing their hands for 20 seconds with soap. A lot of times it's just putting their soap on their hands and then letting the soap slide right off. Or just rinsing it with water. And so that had been discussed. And so I just wanted to see if that was still the plan or if that has now been changed.
Yeah, so at the very beginning when this happened, it was discussed, and then we had these mass shortages of hand sanitizer, and CDC also came back and really encouraged the hand washing. So at that point, we decided to go with the hand washing stations, and which is why we built those stations where we could have multiple children washing their hands at a time. Just knowing that it wouldn't be ideal to line kids up in a classroom with one sink and try to clean, that many hands. It'd probably take, 20 minutes, 5 or 6 times a day, which would be eat into your educational time. So that's why we put in the hand washing stations. But recently we have received some more of the Purell. And so I think we'll be able to put more of those out there than we thought before in the spring. But we're still focusing on hand washing as that primary way of cleaning hands.
Thank you. It's a good question too. Robin Pelk.
Hey, yes, thank you. So first I want to thank you, Mr. Kelly, for that really incredibly thorough presentation and all the work that you've done. And it was super informative. So thank you for that. My comment is actually echoing a little bit what Mr. Walton said about the importance of airborne transmission. And I do really want to say I appreciate that you've looked into getting MERV 13 filters, which of course are what is recommended. But I'm definitely pretty concerned that it turns out that our HVAC system can't handle the MERV 13. And from what I've read, MERV 8 filters are only about 20% effective for particles in the size range that we're concerned about. And so I wanted to ask if there's alternatives being considered or what we could do to advocate for that, such as portable HEPA filters in the classrooms, because I think, we've got this, you presented some amazing technology about cleaning surfaces and that kind of thing. But, as John said, the airborne transmission is still primary route of transmission and would still be a concern if all we have is MERV 8.
Yeah, we looked into some filters or portable filters. My biggest concern with those is the amount of air that you can push through them, which is not very much. The really good ones that are really expensive you can get about 10 or 12 minutes for a 960 square foot classroom, which is about average. Most of the ones that I think you're finding at Costco and other places, it's longer than that. I'm concerned about the noise in our classroom. So when we start talking about all these fans going on and changing out the air, there's going to be noise. Teachers are going to be fighting wearing a mask, trying to teach kids, and then over a fan as well. I have major concerns about that once we start implementing this. I'm more focused, I think, on trying to get an exchange of air through the windows, whether that's by a fan delivery system and bypassing the filtration, but just basically pushing out that air and bringing in new air. Which I think will be a lot faster and more efficient, and will still do the same job. Like I said, we're still I wouldn't say researching, but we're still looking into all these new ideas coming out and trying to figure out what's going to be best for our classrooms, and being able to implement it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next up is Steve Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks very much for your time. Director Kelly, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. I've got a few questions that I'm hoping either the board or Director Kelly might be able to answer. And I'll just go through them and then maybe you can answer them once I'm done. It was great to hear that an outdoor classroom is being considered for the charter school. Has that been considered, and is that possible for some of our other PGUSD locations? I think it would be great if we could investigate that for the time when we do come back. Maybe the weather's better, at least being able to flex some of our educational events outside. The second one I wanted to ask, the second question was in regards to the groups that we had early on. There was a large discussion in the facilities group regarding UV units being placed into the rooms. And I didn't know if that had been followed up on and what the status was. I'm not sure if those are surface only, but from the preliminary discussions, it was surface and air disinfection. And while they are expensive, I don't think we should be looking at ways to save money right now, especially when it comes to the safety of our students. In regards to the custodians and the scheduling of those custodians, do we have a alternate plan should one of the custodians become sick, either just with a normal illness or with COVID? And if that does happen and the custodial crew has to quarantine, is there a disaster cleanup specialist or a group that we have contracted with or in the process of contracting with that would be able to come in and fulfill those duties? The last couple questions, just very quickly. I know we're talking about plexiglass.
Mr. Thomas, you do have 3 minutes. So
yes,
I think
I'm sorry, I don't have a clock, but
yeah, Christy, go ahead.
5 seconds left.
Plexiglass on all the desks, is that being considered? And then just hopefully we can continue to have updates to the board and the public regarding the ongoing work that you guys are doing. Thank you very much. Great job, Director Kelly.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly, any of them that you can answer, please do. If not, we can follow up with email on any of those. Do you want me to go down the list?
Sure.
Okay.
I think the first one, the outdoor classroom.
Yes.
I think we're looking into some outdoor options with and getting Wi-Fi on the outdoors. As far as a structure like that, we haven't discussed any options. And what's the next one?
UV units.
Oh, UV. Yeah, I do recall that being a discussion. The public was asking. We did, I think we did look into it, and it was cost, and it was, and there was some doubt on how well they actually did work and what they did clean. We think that the disinfection was a better answer for us. Traditional disinfection was a better answer for us.
Alternative plans for cleaning if maintenance is not available or there's some disaster.
So in my mind, in looking at the operations plan, if a custodian gets sick, and when we probably do the tracking on him, he's probably been in just about every room. So we're probably looking at having to close the whole school. And then we follow those protocols of letting the school sit for 24 to 48 hours. And then we would bring in either our own other custodial crews or maintenance crews to disinfect and clean the classroom.
Okay. Last one is I think you answered already, but the plexiglass, if that was being installed in all areas or all desks.
Oh, on all desks.
Yeah.
Right now, the plan is just in those areas that we talked about. And we will be having discussions and management about the student ones.
Okay, thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Kylene, you have your hand up still. Did you have another question or?
Yes, I did. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of piggyback. While I appreciate the hand washing stations, if a child goes to the bathroom while we are teaching, we are not there to monitor if they're actually washing their hands, let alone for 20 seconds, let alone with soap. So while I understand that the CDC guidelines, obviously says that washing their hands with soap is better, again, I think it goes back to the kids aren't always going to necessarily follow the 20-second, fingers, tops of hands, and whatnot. And so just again, I think I'm just trying to get clarity, because when I'm hearing on one end in other meetings that there will be the hand sanitizing stations outside of each classroom, and then now it's sounding like there's not, because I think that was one thing that a lot of teachers thought was going to happen.
Sorry, I should have probably, I think I was one track mind. I was thinking of just the Purell battery operated dispenser ones, but I think Katrina has enough for just bottles for every classroom.
Okay.
I apologize for that. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, this will be our last question. Is Claire Davies?
Well, it's not a question. I just wanted to talk about the plexiglass for the desks. So we have purchased them for our specialized classrooms. And I know that the principals are looking at purchasing for the campuses. But we were the first ones to try them out. And we found a pretty good sturdy type of tripod thing that sits on the student's desk. It does require more cleaning in the classroom, but we are working on that. I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank
and
you.
We have bought tents for outside, but it's so the students can go sit outside and have snacks or have their sensory breaks. The climate in Pacific Grove would make outdoor school, I think, very difficult. So
at a big scale. Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay, this is an information discussion. So I think that was a great information and a great discussion. So I'll bring it back and let's Director Kelly, if you have anything else to add.
That's it. Thank you very much for your
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll move on to continue our discussion on COVID. Dr. Porras.
Thank you, Madam President. And again, want to acknowledge and appreciate Director Kelly and his entire crew for the work that he's doing with all of that. There's just a lot going on, and a lot of the discussions that around the plexiglass and some of the other mitigation devices, we talk about those too from the schools that have already begun doing some work with waivers, some of the smaller school districts. It's kind of a mixed bag on the plexiglass report. So we're trying to get a sense of how successful it's been or not been. It's kind of one of those things where it feels really good to have it, feels really good to see it. It makes you feel like, okay, there's something here, some barrier that's helping me. But the reality is, in an airborne environment, if that's the direction it's going, it's minimally effective. And the other issue that other districts have been reporting is that it's creating a bit of a task in terms of the cleaning it after every use. So trying to figure out what the most effective way for doing that is. And so a little bit of a mixed bag. We're trying to walk through it. So we'll probably have some better ideas around that as we get more feedback from the county. I want to allow as much time as possible for the sites to present their hybrid plans, because really that was what we were aiming for this evening. The only thing I really would just want to preface all of this with, as hopeful as we are that vaccines will be developed, and we know that that's going to take time. There's still a lot of trials to go through, and we still have a winter to get through here in our area, especially. I sent a message out via the updates to parents via emails about some of the current conditions happening in the state. We're looking at right now a curfew actually across California in regards to travel limitations as well. So I think the state is really trying to brace itself for what we're already seeing as an increase in cases. For schools, it clearly makes it really difficult to try to manage how that's going to play out in all of our buildings and our gatherings. So again, with the interest of making it as safe as possible, we're watching what's happening just in terms of the COVID data that we're getting from the county health department, and want to make our decisions based on that accurate data and on the trends that we're seeing. One of the pieces of news that we recently saw come through as the state has made some changes in its tier assignments as of November 16th. Obviously, things are getting much more rigorous in the way that they're going to be assigning those tiers, and that where it used to be every Tuesday, there would be a reassessment of tiers in counties and how it looks. The state made it very clear now that a change in tier assignment could happen on a daily basis. It could happen any day, more than once in a week. The California Department of Public Health has made it really clear that whatever happens, they're going to be using the most reliable data possible. And so that's also very good to hear. But it does make it a little more tricky for those of us in the public service sector. I'm sure Trustee Walton is seeing this up in San Mateo as well, and the work that he does. The predictability factor kind of starts to get a little bit more tricky. And so planning long-term can be a little difficult. So that being said, the plans you're going to hear, we'll start with the elementary schools and then work our way through the high school. We did try to distribute the plans out to the public as fast as we could. We got them out today, this morning, starting at 10 a.m. so that the public can take a look at those. We emailed those out, and we'll be going over those same plans in just a little bit. We want to make sure that everyone understands the plans for hybrid are if we are permitted to come back to in classroom with, and it would be minimal, obviously, outside of the purple tier, and it would have to be in red. And again, we would have to figure out how many parents would be staying in distance learning and how that would shake loose for us. So these plans are based on that. And I want to iterate what I had spoken about last week, based on what we're seeing with the trends right now that everyone can see in terms of the data from the state and the county. We're not anticipating a return to in-person, certainly not early January. And at this stage of the game, we're, as many districts around us are thinking, it's probably not going to be till March before we have a real clear, or even a good idea of being able to return. So we are probably going to ask the board, well, we'll be asking the board for some kind of action decision on this for the December 10th meeting. That will give us a chance to present these plans tonight. It gives the sites a chance to rebound it with their staff and get some other parent input on the plans that we're presenting. And then that way we can kind of make a pretty clear stance so families know what to expect coming through the winter break and into the January time. So that's the preface. I'm going to go ahead and move it on to Principal Keller, who's going to start us off from Robert down, and then over to Forest Grove, and then to the middle school and to the high school. They'll be sharing their screens with you. And again, these are the plans that we did email out earlier today. And we'll make sure they get posted once this meeting is completed. Principal Keller. And I probably haven't unmuted you yet, have I? All right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Porras. So again, these were sent out earlier today. And so I'm just trying to get to where I can scroll down easily. Here we go. So these were updated this week, and obviously they're pending board approval. Besides the introduction here, I do want to remind Robert Down families that they can use my Google Voice. I've left my number there. They can text me anytime, and I'm more than happy to call back or email back if to keep the communication going. Much like we did before, we sent out a survey, and the two programs offered are full distance, which is what we're doing right now, or to have a blended learning program. What Principal Rogoman and I would like to propose to our community is to have an AM/PM model, which is a switch from our original overview of reopening back in July. And we have a schedule below that I'll share. So again, the full distance learning will continue as we are in just currently. And to go into the blended learning plan itself, we would continue with asynchronous Mondays, with students meeting with their teacher in the morning, and teachers having Mondays for planning and working with their grade levels. And then from Tuesday through Friday, there would be an AM group, obviously in the morning, where PM students would be working asynchronously at home. And then after lunch, the PM group would come and we'd have cleaning in between. And the AM group would then switch to asynchronous learning. You can kind of see when the students are on campus, that would be basically the synchronous learning that we have right now in distance learning. So you'll see the same bell schedule in Principal Rogaman's overview as well, where we have the kindergarten coming in the AM group at 8:30 with a dismissal at 10:30. The PM group would then come in at noon and leave at 2. For first and second grade, they would also come in at 8:30 with a dismissal at 11 to have a little bit of staggered end time in the AM. And there'd be a little bit of staggered beginning time in the PM group where they would start at 12:30 and they would leave at 3. For third, fourth, and fifth, the AM group would have a staggered start with starting at 8:45 and ending at 11:15, with the PM group coming in at 12:45 and a staggered leave time leaving at 3:15. For my campus, with Patty Bloomer's SDC group, they would be coming in only for the AM, and they're electing to have Tuesday, Wednesday as their days from 9 to 11:45. So the students would be able to utilize the grab and go lunches that occur both on Tuesday and Wednesdays. For drop off and pickup, you may have seen the map earlier in Director Kelly's presentation. At Robert Down, we will have 4 access areas or 4 quadrants, A, B, C, and D. And again, I'd like to thank Mr. Kelly for creating this map with all the color coding. I think it really helps parents and our community understand where students will enter and where they primarily will be located during the day. And you can see that we have an access point at Spruce and 13th, which is where our current drop off and pick up in the back of the school is located. For area B, I'd like to allow parents to come in and do a loop, since Spruce Avenue is really narrow, and I don't think there would be safe 3-point turns for parents if they were to pull up and drop their student off. So we're going to create cones every day for morning and afternoon drop off and pickup, and they'll be able to drop their student off on campus. For area C, that will be off of Pine Avenue by the co-op, and we'll create a location near the co-op for drop off and pickup as well. And for area D, we are going to utilize the bus area for drop off and pickup. And if we do have transportation, we will have a 10-minute window where we will ask families not to use the drop off or pickup so the bus can come in safely without having any traffic. At every access point, temperatures will be taken by Robert Down staff. You can also see underneath the map that Principal Rogman and I estimated, based on the survey results, how many students would be accessing in the AM and PM at every entry area. And obviously it's the same for their exit as well. And for my campus, since area C currently has the most students, I might assign 1 classroom from that area to join the B group, since that's just opens up a little bit more space for everybody. As I mentioned, our special education program will be coming back. They will be earlier. We plan to have them start on December 1st. And they will be coming back on, again, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. But when we do have all students return to school, our STC students will match their general education peers with their schedule. At this time, Mr. Rogman and I do not foresee BASRP opening when we open up. We'll see what kind of guidelines the state provides. But at this point in time, we didn't feel it was safe to have our cohorts mix and with the possibility of exposure, so that the BASRP before and after school program is to be determined, as is transportation at this time. And for PPEs, or personal protective equipment, All students and staff will be required to wear a mask. And for any reason, if a student were to tear, take off, or lose their mask, we will have some spares to provide for them. Physical distancing will be used throughout the campus and within classrooms. And for our SEC program, only 3 students will be returning at this time. For the recess section, that is assuming we do come in under the red tier, but I'm sure the SEC program will have little breaks to use the playground as needed. But students will be using the playground within their cohorts. The cohorts will not mix. We'll have different areas, possibly per week, and they'll be spread out throughout the campus and utilizing all locations on the campus. During our current time, lunches will be available for grab and go. And the afternoon students, if they do want to come get their lunch, that's fine, but they will need to eat it before they arrive on campus for their PM session. And for restroom use, only 2 students will be allowed inside at any one time, and we will be assigning for 1st through 5th grade certain stalls for those grade levels. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Rogeman.
Mr. Keller, thank you so much for going through the bulk of the elementary plan. Of course, there are some site-specific things for Forest Grove. And so I am going to present that at this time. As Principal Keller talked about, we will also be offering 2 programs. One would be a full distance learning program that basically is going to be the program that we have going on now. And then the other would be a blended learning program that's going to follow the exact same kind of schedule that Mr. Keller talked about. From Monday through Friday, with the asynchronous day being Monday, the live instruction being Tuesday through Friday, working with an AM/PM model. One of the things I wanted to make clear and remind people of is the amount of instructional minutes that we're required to give while we are under the distance learning and hybrid programs described by the state. The kindergarten has 180 mandatory minutes for instruction. You will see that the schedules that we've built have 120 minutes built in for live instruction, which means that there would be another 60 minutes that the kindergarten teachers would have for their students to do asynchronous work when they are not at school. 1st and 2nd grade, that total number that they're required to have is 230 minutes. You can see that the schedules that we've built have 150 minutes of live instruction built in. So there would be another 80 minutes of instruction that would be done in an asynchronous fashion outside of this in-person instruction. Some of that 80 minutes might be the 30 minutes for PE that students do throughout the day, which would then leave about 50 more minutes of additional asynchronous work that would be assigned to students when they are not doing the in-person instruction at school. 3rd grade also has a 230-minute requirement. 4th and 5th grade, however, the requirement is now 240 minutes. So while we have that 150 minutes planned for the in-person instruction, that would leave now 90 minutes that would be given asynchronously on those days when students are live at campus in either the AM or PM group. Also want to point out that these plans were built in conjunction with a staff planning committee. We've met twice over the past couple of weeks for 90 minutes each time. So there's been about 3 hours of feedback going back and forth with our staffs, not only about these bell schedules and the weekly setup, but also discussing different kind of cleaning options and arrival and drop off and all of the different topics that you see covered here. We are going to begin to get our parent feedback at this meeting tonight. And then, like I said, we're going to have a check-in with the principal on Tuesday, where parents can give us feedback about this reopening plan. If you look at our campus map, you'll notice that we have 3 drop-off points rather than 4. The first drop-off point is going to be at the front of school. This is going to be for the students that are going to school in the B or C wing. Then our next drop-off point is going to be this maintenance gate that you would enter off of Congress. The reason why we chose this maintenance gate for our kindergarten and TK wing, as well as our E wing, is that this gate provides a very large entrance, whereas this gate, where we sometimes release students from school, is very small. So we wanted to have a bigger entrance area as well as a place for people to gather before they were going to enter either the K or E wing as we're taking their temperatures and moving them along. Students that are going to class in the G wing or the D wing are going to enter from the back of campus in our gate that is by the playground structure. You can see that we have our breakdown of the approximate number of students that would be entering at the different times of day. Keep in mind that even though this says 53 students, you're going to have students that are on a staggered schedule that is staggered by about 15 minutes. So at any given time, you're looking at more at about like 27 or 28 students that we would be processing through the gate on their way to go to their classes. Let's see, we also are going to welcome back our SDC inclusion students for Tuesdays and Thursdays, beginning, we hope, on December 1st. There's still some negotiating that we're going to be doing with our PGTA unit and some discussions that we're going to have. But we've worked with our staffs to work out, the safety precautions that are going to be in place as well as the schedules. So for the primary SDC in inclusion, we are only going to have an AM group. The kindergarten and first grade students are going to start off by coming to school for 1 hour to see how they adjust to that live instruction. And our second grade students are going to come from 2 hours from 9:30 until 11:30. We hope to expand the day as the students build their endurance for live instruction. For our intermediate SDC in inclusion program, they're a little bit older students, and so we're going to have them come for 2 hours and 45 minutes for that live instruction on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You see the times for the AM group as well as the times for the PM group. And so trustees as well as members of the public, I think that that provides a pretty accurate summary of the reopening plans that we've decided on initially. Keep in mind that these are our drafts and some changes can be made to the programs as we get that feedback from our parents as well as from our trustees and other members of our community here tonight and in our subsequent meetings. Our goal was to be able to go to this program as soon as our county went from purple to red, with the earliest possible date being January 5th. Although with the information that the superintendent has shared with us, our eyes are wide open and realistic that it's not very likely that this would start on January 5th. However, anytime the county went to red or orange thereafter, we want to be ready to offer this live instructional hybrid learning program. Thank you.
Madam President, would you like us to take a pause here and take questions, or would you like us to move on to and do the presentations first?
Let's see. Let's go ahead and pause for 5 minutes and allow a couple questions for elementary.
Okay.
If you have a question for or suggestion, comment regarding the elementary presentation, go ahead and raise your hand. Carolyn Swanson. I'm just going to allow a couple, like 10 minutes, and then we'll move on.
There are board questions in this part too, or no?
Sure. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Thank you, Debbie Crandall. So I just want to clarify one thing really quickly before I ask my question. So just to make sure I understand, there's a lot of moving parts here. So because we aren't applying for the waiver, we are waiting until we are in the red tier for 14 days before we would implement this AM/PM in-person instruction. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Oh, thank you. Okay. And then it also sounds like in this presentation, because we're in the purple tier, but because being in the purple tier, that means we are allowed to have our most vulnerable kids back on campus in very specific cohort configurations. That, however, is going to begin really kind of rubber hit the road December 1st. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So speaking as a parent, speaking as a parent, listening to the presentations, we're spending a lot of time talking about the hybrid, what it would look like when we go back on. To me, it sounds like what's really happening right now is we're in full distance learning for pretty good foreseeable future. My concern, or my question, my hope, my plea is that we start developing better two-way communications between our families and how our families can give feedback on distance learning. Right now, I feel like we have a complaint-driven system where if we want to make an improvement, if something is really not working for us as families, we're just told we need to talk to the teacher. And normally I think that's a wonderful option because I understand there's a chain of command in schools and we are supposed to start with the teacher. However, this is a really weird time and our teachers are the ones putting their hearts and souls into distance learning. And I had 6 families this week reach out to me, 6 of them say, we don't feel comfortable talking to the teacher. Who should we talk to? So then I say, okay, then you should talk to the principal. Then they're like, oh my gosh, talking to the principal. And what ends up happening is they just don't talk. And I think we need to figure out a way where 14 or something weeks into the school year, we need to really figure out a way to open up communication where it feels comfortable to families to give true feedback. Options for working families to be told, you know what, you don't have to do PE right now. You know, things like that where we can foster this mental health so we can actually have families participating and not being just drained by all of this. I think the teachers and the families are in the same boat. We've got lots of responsibilities, no power. It feels like we have absolutely no power to make things change. So I'm hoping that our focus goes more towards improving distance learning by opening communications for the families. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Pelk, you're up next.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to quickly say I definitely appreciate the difficulties with BASRP and why that would be challenging and why that might not be possible to open. But I also wanted to urge the district to consider if there's a way that you can make that work. And the reason is that, of course, you know, working families are going to use childcare. That need doesn't go away, whether or not BASRP is closed, and it could introduce more exposure risk if every parent is doing this on an ad hoc basis and they're all using different childcares, as opposed to if we were able to come up with an organized way to keep students within BASRP in some more coordinated groups.
Thank you. Ivy Khan.
Hi. Well, thank you for the details of the 2 plans there. I have a question. How does an AM/PM model benefit students instructionally when you compare that to the original AABB model? Because it's really hard to make childcare and work arrangement with a completely new schedule going into a hybrid model, especially without BASLP. So, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, this will be our last public comment on this particular section, and then we'll go to the board. Marin Sanchez.
Hi guys, thank you. Marin Sanchez, I'm a teacher at Forest Grove, but I'm actually speaking as a parent of a first grader. My question or concern is that with these, with the reopening models, there hasn't been any mention of reconfiguration or regrouping of the kids with different teachers. And I just wanted to get some information on that. I know I have some stress about the idea of my son having a whole new class and a whole new teacher when we go back. So I just wanted to kind of ask maybe what the timeline is, when parents would have input on that, so then they can make their final decisions, because I think that will impact a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Christy, do you have any comments about elementary plan?
Well, I appreciate very much the equity and the working of the 2 elementary teachers. I'm sorry, sites, making sure that kids have equitable experiences. One of the questions I had was, I thought that when we originally talked about masks, that the little TK kids, were they always required to have masks? I know today it said all students wear masks.
Yes, the requirement now coming from the state, basically any youngster, I think it's 2.5 years or older, need to have masks.
Just to keep
So
them.
yeah, so it's not a decision we're making internally, but one it's coming from the Department of Health. So
Yeah, okay. It'll be challenging, but that's great.
sure.
All right.
Sure,
Thank
I
you.
think that's why it's very important for us to have some time alone on the campus with our youngest students for a couple of days, just to help them get used to being, number one, back on a campus, and number two, kind of understanding how lines work and, you know, masks work and all that stuff. It's going to take some time.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciated very much that staggered dealing and the increase of hours and everything to kind of improve the success rate of sliding back into being on campus. So thank you.
Thanks, Christy. John Peth?
Well, Sean, thank you very much for presenting. I appreciate that. I too actually have written down advantage of AM, PM versus alternate days and a question mark. In the grand scheme, I thought we'd actually kind of settled the other way for other reasons. So somewhere in there, I might ask you about that separately. Sean, drop off at Spruce. It seems to me that there's a significantly increased adverse effect on people living on there. Have you reached out to the neighborhood about that, if you're going to end up with more people and parents not being able to go in, et cetera? I have a question on the flow of children generally and the fact of 3 hand washing sites. If you have 36 or 41 students coming in at a time, you end up with probably a good 10 minutes minimally for hand washing, even with 3 at a time in a compacted area. And that's true in 4 different doors. So that seems, we're going to be pushing that if we actually get to that. And maybe that's the best there is, but that's pretty close. So let me see if I have one other item here. I do have, no, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Did you just want to give them that feedback, or did you want answers, or?
Well,
I mean,
yeah, some of it.
I'm more than happy to answer.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean. I mean, eventually, if you haven't reached out, you'll have to reach out to those.
Yeah, well, just so you know, Trustee Paff, when I first started, I did write to every single neighbor in about a 2-block radius of Robert Down. We, again, last year started heavily using Spruce and 13th as a drop-off area. I did not receive any complaints there, but you and I are in sync. I definitely will be contacting the people near Spruce and Fountain to let them know that that will be, there will be an increase in traffic for sure during those times, and supply them with the schedule and, let them reach out to me.
Thanks.
Okay. Brian, do you have anything for the elementary?
Yeah, just a quick question on the lunch and pick up the lunch for the kids that are doing that in the late group. It's like, how do you guys know offhand at least when lunch will be available? Because I'm guessing too, since the afternoon kids can pick up their lunch, but they can't eat it there. That's, I can see some kids like, all right, I'm just going to pick up my lunch and I'm going to go sit on the curb and eat it or something. I don't know. Do you know the times yet? How those will be?
We don't. We were building this off of our current kind of grab and go system that's been set up at Robert Downey High School in Arkwright and Moreland. Our thought was that we could have one set of lunches ready to go at our school for the children that were leaving in the morning. And then if we're doing that common distribution of the lunches like we are now, then our afternoon students could go and pick up their lunches there, eat them before they come to school. We think that we've left a big enough gap in time to where that would be a possibility for our students that wanted a school lunch.
Great. All right. And I have no doubt you guys will figure it out in a way that it'll work. I was just curious as to whether you had yet or not. So thank you. I appreciate that. And just one other quick, other people have said it already. I think it's great how you guys are collaborating and bringing these schools together the way you are too. So thanks for that also.
Okay, thanks, Brian. John Walton did have to drop off. So we will go back to you, Dr. Porras, if we wanted to go to the middle school. Is that next?
Yes, I think that's probably the next best thing. I just want to assure everybody that we're writing all these questions down. We definitely want to address them as we can. It helps in the planning stage for sure. So we will try to answer these questions as we continue our planning and try to get back to folks in emails as we can too. So if we could go to the middle school now, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Porras. Can everybody see?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Well, Sean Roach, proud principal of Pacific Grove Middle School. And this hybrid model here is our A-B model. It should look very familiar, not only because we shared it with families and the board a couple weeks ago, but it really mirrors what we are currently doing in our model. As you can see, it would be entailing hosting half of our students on Tuesday and Wednesday. The other half would be hosted on Thursday and Friday. When a group of students is not hosted on site, they're doing their asynchronous work while the others are doing face-to-face live instruction. Okay. Our current Monday schedule would remain the same in both iterations I'm going to show you. So I have this schedule and I have another schedule to show you after this. I think that's important too, to make sure that students have that asynchronous time on Monday before the beginning of the school week to complete their asynchronous work and get ready for the week. And also, I think it's important to continue our Character Strong program, our character program, so that they continue to kind of get to know each other and learn lessons on kindness and that kind of thing. In this model, there would be 3 transitions per day. Lunch would be served in its entirety to half of the school. It would be a grab model and we would have assigned seating on site. Students in this group would have 5 days off of site. So if you take a look at that A cohort, their last day on school is Wednesday, and they wouldn't come back onto campus until Tuesday. For the B cohort, the last day is Friday. They wouldn't come back onto site until Thursday, which would really kind of assist us in aiding our safety protocols and also allow us for families to convey any important information that they might need us to.
Sean, you got muted on accident somehow. Try to.
Okay, hang on, Sean. Don't click anything yet. Let me just hands off the keyboard, man. Okay, now try to unmute yourself. There you go.
Am I good?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, I don't know where I left off, Debbie, so I'm going to go back just a little bit. I think there's, of the 2 models that I'm going to show you, I think there's a curricular advantage to this one. These are 80 face-to-face live instructional minutes for students. Our teachers, our staff have really gotten good at using the entirety of the 80 minutes. There is bell-to-bell instruction all over PGMS. And the 80-minute is like a block schedule at the high school. So it allows for a preview, individual practice or guided practice, and then a conclusion and a reflection at the end of a lesson. So I really enjoy it. I really appreciate that. The next model I'm going to show you guys, and let's see if I can do this. Sorry. is an AM/PM model. And we decided to mock up an AM/PM model just to see what it would look like. So it's almost the same as the one I showed you prior, except it's kind of split on its side. So instead of students being here for 2 full days a week, they would be on site for 4 half days a week. So again, just like the other schedule, the Monday would remain exactly the same. So both groups would be participating in their advisory class. They would also be utilizing their asynchronous time. Students would be divided in half. So half of the students would be AMers or early birds, and the other half would be PMers or late birds. It follows the same type of schedule. As you can see, Tuesday would be evens, Wednesday would be odds, Thursday would be evens, and Friday would be odds. These classes in both models that I showed you would include electives, it would include PE, it would include music, all the offerings that we have currently. In this model, however, the lunch would be kind of a split thing. So our AMers would do a grab and go. They would grab their stuff and go ahead and head home. And for the remainder of the day, they would be doing their asynchronous work, while our PMers are welcome to join us and grab some lunch and have supervised assigned seating before they enter class for the latter part of the day. There are a couple things. There are 6 transitions in this model as opposed to 3. And what I mean by transitions is students leaving classes and going to other classes. And another thing is that in this model, the AM/PM, we would be hosting the entirety of our hybrid population on site each day. But I did want to bring that to the board for consideration. As I move down a little bit on the list, and I'm not going to go through this. By the way, this entire plan that you're seeing is available currently on our website at pgmiddle.pgusd.org. So if you want to really get in depth later tonight or tomorrow, please look that up. Okay, so I'm not going to go quite as deep into things as the elementary schools, because a lot of the stuff that they're saying is protocols that are district-wide. I just want to let you know that we have 6 entry points, and so our students would line up, and there was a sign that Matt Kelly showed you earlier from PGMS that had the classrooms that were listed over the entrance, and what a student would do is they would line up for their entrance to those specific classrooms, and our goal in that is to limit the amount of foot traffic, non-necessary foot traffic that they would need. You could see the little red star down here on the left-hand corner would be servicing the portables. The yellow star up at the top would be for those who have gym class. They could meet outside. The music building you can see has that blue one. And then we have several other areas at the front and the double doors in the back. As I continue down. And like I said, a lot of the protocols here are similar. Students would be directed to their assigned point of entry and wait in that area. Students' temperatures would be taken. And they would be washing their hands before they enter. Students would be monitored as they move throughout the building, inside and outside. Let me see. PPE would be mandated for all students. Physical distancing in class, in hallways, and outside during PE and events. We are actually toying with the idea of spray painting circles on the athletic field to make sure that we can make sure that students are keeping a safe distance from one another. Okay, here's one of the differences though for lunch on the A/B model. So those are the 2 full days where students would be on site. They would just reside with us for lunch, and they would have seating that is assigned and would be distanced, and they would eat their lunch. And then we would divide the cohorts up and have them in different parts of the field. Fortunately, we have a lot of room back there. For the A/B model, however, students would be, our AMers would be grabbing and going. I'm sorry, for the AM/PM model. Our AMers would be grabbing their lunch and leaving, and our PM would be welcome to come and join us for lunch and sit in their assigned area before they join us for the remainder of the school day. And the restrooms. Students will use common restrooms with particular stalls assigned to each grade level. 2 students will be allowed in at a time during lunch with adults monitoring, and students may access restrooms during class periods. Okay. And I just want to give you guys a little bit of a note on instructional minutes. Currently, our instructional mandate for middle school is 240 minutes of instruction per class per week. Under our current schedule, the one that we're under right now, PGMS has 160 of those minutes are synchronous minutes. So they are with their teacher in a virtual environment receiving instruction. Our entire staff utilizes something called a week at a glance. And what that does is that lets students know what they can expect for the week, how many, and if an assignment is either synchronous or asynchronous, and the amount of time that's assigned to that, and that equals 240 minutes per week. Our entire staff utilizes engagement ratings, which reside in Illuminate. So if a student is disengaged or not participating well, they receive a rating for that. And that kind of lets us know, kind of in a historical way, if a student's beginning to slide and slip, we can actually intervene and do something about that. We also employ a camera on policy, which has really been met well by teachers, by students, and by families. And so that's really a powerful way for us to kind of verify that engagement during those 160 synchronous minutes. We can see them, we can listen to them and hear them participating in class. The remaining 80 minutes are asynchronous. And so as you guys saw up here, and I'm going to go ahead and just show it to you one more time, because the Monday now is what the Monday would look like in both of these. You can see that there's a timeline that allows 40 minutes of asynchronous time scheduled for them to do their asynchronous work on Monday. And then it's our recommendation that students do 20 minutes a night so that they don't get overwhelmed with their work. And that equates to 240 instructional minutes. Also too, I know you guys have heard this in the past quite a bit, but we do what we call our students of concern. And one of the areas that we look at in our students of concern is a disengagement. So when we look at our grade books and verify if synchronous assignments are being done and asynchronous assignments are being done, that also lets us know if a student is not accessing a part of our curriculum. Are there any questions that you guys have for me? I know that was quite a bit to digest.
Thank you, Sean. We're going to allow some public comment. So if you have a comment, you can raise your hand and the board will go ahead and go through our questions. I failed on the elementary, so we can go back to that, but I promised I would ask about homework. So, and this is not specific to this plan, but in general, and especially this coming week was the question, is there any homework policy practices outside of our normal policy since we've been distance learning?
For the middle school?
Yeah.
No, actually, you know something, and we've surveyed our families quite a bit. We've surveyed our students quite a bit, and we are constantly striving for that sweet spot in what we're doing. And oftentimes we've had to pull back a little bit to make sure. I think our biggest challenge right now, Debbie, isn't homework. It's really supporting students in that asynchronous part. So that kind of that homework that you're supposed to do by yourself without the teacher actually being there. But yeah, that's at this point, the 240 minutes of instruction is just about all the kids can handle right now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Madam President, just for the public's awareness, the policy reference is 6154, 6154. There's nothing in the policy that asserts that no homework would happen over a holiday or weekends. However, it's been practiced for the most part to try not to assign homework over holidays or breaks, usually the larger ones. I can't speak to what the Veterans Day piece was, but I know that Mr. Garcia can speak to that a little bit. But typically, over the long breaks, the schools typically do not assign homework. But I'll leave the sites to speak if there's something different that comes up.
Thank you. Christy, you have anything for the middle school?
Yeah, I have a few things. First of all, I'm very excited about the face-to-face direct instruction. It makes me very, very happy. I would tend to like the second model more. I understand there's less chance of infection or with less people around. I mean, I get that stuff. But I think when we talk about the social, emotional health of the kids and the connection to the school, to have them come 4 days out of 5 is far superior than you know, than the 2 days out of 5. I just think it allows us to keep an eye on them, and there's more connection. So I would say that. The other thing, I don't know how you're determining AM, PM, and I know this is going to come up the high school as well. If a kid is this size, if parents have any input on that, if I have AM, do I have that always, or will that change possibly at a quarter? So kids that maybe would have the benefit of, you know, both early and later.
Yeah.
Or parents say they don't really care.
Yeah, you know, it's something that I hadn't considered. I considered if you're an AMer, you're going to be an AMer. I would love to know that if we are going to do a hybrid for more than a quarter, I wouldn't make that switch more than a quarter. That would crush the teachers. Instructionally, it wouldn't be the smartest thing in the world. And for the
Sure.
split. Now, if we do have a family that says, you know, is there a way I can get Billy on the PM because Billy's brother is, you know, whatever it is, we can do that in a hot second.
That's good to do, but very, very thankful about direct instruction. I just want the credentialed teachers with their kids, and that looks wonderful to me. Thank you so much.
Good thing. Thank you.
John Paff? Or I could just say John, since the other John left.
Sure, it's okay. Ralph, back to your question. It's not the policy about assigning homeworks over a break or not assigning homeworks over a break. It's a problem of someone assigning a homework with roughly 8 hours left in a day after a break. And this has happened through my children's career here very consistently. And that needs to be addressed. However, Sean, thank you for the presentation on the model. I guess, and this is a concern I have at all levels, we can say, and it's a problem now. I mean, I don't know how to resolve it. You've worked on it quite a bit just by saying you have to have a camera on for some period of time. But bringing people in and then saying, and now you have 100 minutes of asynchronous, which translates to somewhere between 10 minutes and 2 hours, you know. I don't know any way of resolving that particular facet of it. So I am suspicious that we're all assuming that this really happens, but I think there's no way of checking it.
John, if I may,
yeah,
I think you raise that is a difficult point, and it's one that we talked about with our teachers prior to how we are assigning this and having to monitor this and stuff. And so it's really it's incumbent upon the teachers' professional acumen to take what work they want the students to do and assign what a normal student, how long a normal student would take. Now, does that mean some students take half that time and some students take more than that time? Yes, it does. But it gives them a really good idea about this would take the average student 40 minutes of asynchronous time to complete this assessment or this, whatever it is, this homework. The synchronous time, I think, is definitely the easiest to follow because you are there with them. You can hear them, you can call on them and say, hey, you know, what's the answer to number 3? Or let's get into a breakout group. I'm gonna pop over and see that you're interacting with your peers and you're doing that stuff. So yeah, the asynchronous is the most challenging portion of it. But I have to tell you, it's really the teacher's professional acumen that says, this task should take this long. And if you don't do it, then I assume you're not doing your asynchronous work. Sorry.
It's a good answer, and I appreciate that, saying, you know, there is flexibility. It's just, it leaves us in a position where we, and it's true at all levels. We're not going to know, we're not going to be able to say this with any certainty. It is a fundamental problem of distance learning or a hybrid model. It doesn't make any difference.
Mm-hmm. It's a challenge.
If there were an easy solution, we'd be in it. We're smarter than this, so you know, there's no, well, just do this, because there is no just. You know, it's not simple. I guess my preference, if you say, do I have a choice of AM, PM, or split days? I just want the elementary in the middle to agree. So I think that it behooves us as a district. I think that is our best chance of providing some relief in terms of driving one set of students out at a time. And that discussion, you and Mr. Rogerman and Mr. Keller should kind of make sure you're in agreement on. So, thank you. Thanks for the presentation.
Certainly.
Brian?
A couple of things. As to what Trustee Pass said, I'd echo that. I think that's one of the more important things, is just that, you know, if the elementary schools and middle school would be in sync, you know, we know it's hard on the students. It's also especially difficult on the parents. And I think that's a way for maybe a lot of the parents to get their lives at least somehow a little bit easier. So I imagine you guys will do that. So the only other thing, and not related to this, but to the homework thing, Dr. Porras, you said what was it, policy 6154?
6154, yes.
Okay, I'm just going to take a look at that. I mean, it does seem sort of, maybe we need to address that at a future meeting about having, you know, if this is something that has occurred on numerous occasions, then and it shouldn't, then maybe we do need to address that in policy and take a look at that and add it. So, but I will do that independently, take a look at that, and we can bring that up at a different time.
Sure thing.
That's all I've got. Thank
I
you.
would like to mention that too real quickly. To me, we're sitting here this evening looking at community service, literally a dozen hours a year for a student that might have that need 3 years from now, and we're worried about stress levels. Teachers should not be assigning homework the day of a holiday. I just don't understand with organization of a classroom why that would be necessary ever. If we're trying to de-stress kids and take care of their social emotional well-being, the stress of that on a family and trying to scramble to get that done, I just don't understand what the excuse would be. If a teacher's planning out what they're going to do, what the curriculum needs to be, then plan a little better, I would say, so that students and families don't have sudden shocks like that they have to just rip around trying to do during a holiday. It can be taken care of before or after and handled. That's my opinion on that. And I don't know, we need policies. I think that's a common sense thing, and we need to take care of those kids and our community. That's my mind on it.
Hey, thanks, Christy. Okay, Dr. Porras, and thank you, Sean, for your presentation. And I guess we're on to the high school.
Yes, ma'am.
Principal Garcia.
All right, thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you all today.
Ta-da.
So before I begin going over 2 scheduling options for Pacific Grove High, I'd just like to start off by saying that I want to acknowledge the strong work ethic, dedication, and extraordinary commitment of our teachers, counselors, and support staff who have been providing an online environment that engages students. I also want to acknowledge our students and our families. I know this has not been easy by any means. So on behalf of the entire staff at PG High and Community High, I want to thank our students and our families for your continued support and your willingness to give your best under these very, very difficult circumstances. And from myself and Mr. Steinbeck, we greatly appreciate what everybody's been doing during this time. So thank you for that. These documents that I'm sharing with you tonight were sent out to our families earlier today. And it is important that when we developed our hybrid model that was approved by the board prior to school starting, we have since learned a lot during distance learning. And because of the learning that has taken place, we felt it was necessary to look again at our hybrid options. And of course, as has been mentioned multiple times this evening, this is just something that we're in the planning stages for. We understand that a lot of things need to take place before we may be able to implement these schedules. So one of the schedules that we're looking at, Schedule 1. This schedule keeps our current distance learning bell schedule, but creates an opportunity for students, an A and a B group, who choose in-person hybrid to be on campus once a day, Tuesday through Friday. We know that we will have a group of students who will want to continue with distance learning, a C group, and we continue to develop plans for that group. Based on our numbers, we do anticipate that this will lead to some re-rostering of students. So as an example, looking at a Tuesday, we will have a group of students in A group in person on campus for period 1. Those students will then go home. They'll have 30 minutes to get home, and they will participate along with all the other students in period 2 through a synchronous class. We'll have our lunch break, and then in the afternoon, B group will come on campus to experience their 4th period class. Then they will have 30 minutes to get home and get online and experience their 6th period class with all students on campus. And this then rotates through the week. So giving students the opportunity to be on campus on a daily basis. We have a second schedule, which is quite different from the first. Give you a view of the entire schedule. With this schedule, we have an A group and a B group. This schedule creates an opportunity for students in either one of those groups who choose to be in person, be on campus 2 days a week. Group A being on campus Tuesdays and Thursdays, Group B Wednesdays and Fridays. These groups will be determined once we have accurate numbers. And again, similar to the first schedule, a C group in distance learning. The biggest difference is that when a student comes on campus, they are on campus for the entire day. So they will experience periods 1, 2, 4, and 6 with a lunch break. And then the following day, a different group will have that same experience. Mrs. Crandall, before I move on to community high school, would you like to have questions related to this schedule pertaining to PG High, or would you like me to go through all of the schedules for our high school students?
Is community high school similar, or is it?
No, they are. It is different.
Okay, let's go ahead and go to the board and public comment briefly for any questions. I don't have any questions at the moment. Christy, do you have any?
I would say the same thing, that I just would like teachers to have eyes on students, and that's why I like the daily thing. I just don't like that they're 5 days out of a full week, they're not being seen. I just like them to be there. The other thing I didn't understand with both John and Brian was that the middle school needed to match the elementaries, and I didn't understand why it wouldn't be middle school matching the high school. Is it because of dropping kids off and picking them up? Because you're still,
I'll answer that if you'd like.
I'd sure love to, just what you were thinking, so I'll
Okay.
understand.
In my opinion, in terms of transportation and actual physical adult necessity for students before and after, high school students, for the most part, need less immediate adult interaction to be doing something back and forth. That's, this is a gross generalization. Whereas K through 6, 7, starting at 8, there's a little more flexibility, but now you have to have an adult helping you, assisting you, and not everybody, but making sure that you're leaving the school. There's more supervision that's necessary. So if you have a family with both elementary and middle school, I think that matching those makes more sense to me. Now, by high school, I think you have to have an adult working with your little brother, but you ought to be able to be responsible enough to go the, roughly 1 mile in any given direction, unless you're in the midst of Pebble Beach, to make it to class and be there on time from anywhere in PG. So I'm less concerned with that for the high school.
Okay. Thank you.
Was that it, Christy?
Yep.
Okay. John, did you have anything else on this one, this schedule?
Yeah, so the thing that comes up, and this was mentioned by Principal Garcia and hinted at by, I think, the elementary, and certainly talked about by Mr. Roach as well. It just seems clear, no matter what hybrid model we go into, there's no possible way of getting there if we're working in a hybrid model. And it doesn't matter if we start in January, if we start in March, or if we start May 28th, without re-rostering students in some manner. And if that's the case, does that drive the school year as you get closer and closer to the end? So I don't know. It's a comment. It's not a question.
Well, if I may, Madam President, I think what you're speaking to is foremost in our minds. We repeat over and over to ourselves in our meetings that a return back under a hybrid model will not be the same as what I think people may be expecting in terms of back to normal. Re-rostering is probably the most difficult hurdle for folks. And it's and addressing a question that was posed earlier, we're still working with our employees to determine which employees required full distance learning, which don't, and how does that match up with the families that we know want full distance learning and not. So we'll be able to show some progress in regards to what that re-rostering looks like. But as soon as we release the first round of this is what it's going to look like, I know we'll have a lot of folks that will be very concerned about the change in their classroom placement. And I think that will drive a second wave of requested changes. It will be difficult. And we just want to, we just need to let folks know that a return back in hybrid, it's going to be tricky. And that's the first and foremost that's going to make it difficult.
And if I may, I was going to save this for the end, but I think it might be appropriate to provide this information right now. If and when our county enters the red tier, the majority of the high school staff would also like to explore the option of a continuation of distance learning. We have several ideas about how to continue with distance learning while creating opportunities for students to have some interaction with their classmates and staff in person. Examples, taking exams on campus, labs, extracurricular activities, sports, which we are already providing at this time, academic intervention. Essentially, we see a need to create opportunities for students to have in-person interaction, but there is a feeling, again, among the majority of staff that we should continue to provide a consistent academic environment for our students and teaching staff through distance learning.
Principal Garcia and Debbie, I'm going to just go back to that. Well, I really appreciate what you just said there, that there is a point here that it seems if we say we're not going back in January, by March, it's just too late. And I guess what I would say to you is, no matter where we end up in January, somewhere you guys sitting down in your staff meeting, take a look at whatever appears to be best practices, even what's best working, not necessarily what best practice is, to come out and say, okay, and here's the improvements we're as a group going to step forward in, which is really hard to do midway through a semester. I'm not asking for that. We have to roll along because the train's moving, we're moving. But somewhere in there, okay, we have to put something aside and say what really, so that it didn't work and what really did work to lift ourselves a little bit further and give ourselves an even better DL, particularly if we think it's going to go forward. I think you're going to reach it. What struck me here is if we're going to re-roster, we're going to reach this point of no return for full DL much faster than I thought. So at that point, we have to look at everything we can do to improve it. So,
Thanks, Sean. Brian, do you have any questions or anything for the high school?
I don't at this time. No, no.
Okay.
Please go on ahead.
Okay. Principal Garcia, I don't see any public comment.
Katie Selfridge had her hand up earlier.
Oh, and she just now raised it again.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much for taking my comment. I wasn't sure if this was timely or not. But first sort of a request and then sort of a comment, I guess. Trustee Paff was talking about the differences within the schedules between the elementary and the middle school bell schedules. And I would ask that we consider having similar bell schedules across all of the schools because many of the high school students are in a position where they have to take care of younger siblings. And right now, the middle school and the high school lunch periods are quite opposite. So the middle school lunch, the high school lunch is from 11:30 to 12:30, and the middle school lunch is from 12:30 to 1:30. So there's no wiggle room there at all for a high school student who perhaps needed to get their middle school student over to pick up lunches or even just to debrief about their day or anything of that sort. And we have found at times that students need to leave or wind up leaving classes early just to take care of siblings and things of that sort. So I would ask that we consider a uniform bell schedule across the all of the sites. And then also what they were just talking about. There was something else that I was just, what Principal Garcia had just mentioned about the idea of maintaining the distance learning for the academic schedule and then possibly opening up that asynchronous time to allow for cohorts of extracurriculars. That is something where a lot of those cohorts are the ones who are spending time together now. So ultimately, it seems like that might lessen student contacts overall or reduce student contacts overall if certain extracurriculars were allowed to meet on campus and spend a little bit of time together. And that could address that social emotional element as well. So anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Principal Garcia, I want to just do a time check. I don't want to rush you on the community high school, but we have 15 minutes before we have to extend the meeting. Do you feel you're okay time-wise?
I will not be responsible for extending the meeting. I got this.
Okay.
You go, Principal Garcia.
All right, community high school. We'll jump right in. So Schedule 1 is actually the hybrid schedule that has been approved. So this is just a little refresher, looking at an AM group, a PM group, and providing an opportunity or a need for students to do asynchronous work in the afternoon. And again, we would have to make a determination of who belongs to the A group and B group based on who will be on campus, and the C group will be our distance learning group. So we'll figure that out once and if we are able to get there at that time. So AM, PM groups, Tuesday through Friday. Schedule 2, similar to Schedule 1 with one big difference, and that is on Wednesdays, we would be synchronous. So this actually mirrors what we are doing more right now within distance learning, in that we have our different groups on Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays, and we bring the whole school together on Wednesdays, as some of the board members have experienced by being part of our career days, which have been taking place on Wednesday. So again, the only difference, Wednesday being synchronous. And then we have a third schedule. And with this schedule, it groups the students so that they are on campus one group at a time, 1 day a week. So group A on campus, group B is asynchronous, group B on campus on Thursday with asynchronous, and then Wednesdays and Fridays, it is synchronous. So this one is less time on campus, but you're with your group for the entire day. And that brings the community high school schedule presentation to an end.
That was really timely. Thank you. Christy, do you have any questions on this one?
Do you have any feedback at this time from students or parents? I mean, it's so funny. It's the smallest group we're dealing with, and yet there are more options than other places. So how do you feel about that, Principal Garcia?
So this information was pushed out to our families today. We will be creating some opportunities for both schools in the near future to seek input. The reason why we have a few more options is that with a smaller group, we can be more flexible in what we can provide. It is the opinion of the staff and myself that Schedule 2 might be the best option, again, if and when we're able to go back.
I just closed out.
Okay, thank you for that feedback.
Yes.
John?
I'm good. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
You're welcome.
Okay, and Brian?
Just a quick question, Principal Garcia. How many students do we presently have at community high school?
18.
18. Okay, so it's a good
Oh,
number.
sorry,
It's certainly too
19
many.
as of today. 19 as of today. Sorry.
Okay, so too many. It would be impossible for us to put them all into just a single group. That's too many for that
Yes.
facility, and that was kind of why the main reason that I was asking about that. So,
Yeah.
okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Hey, any public comment on the community high school proposed plans? Okay, seeing none. Okay, I'm gonna bring it back to the board. And Dr. Porras, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
I think, thank you, Madam President. I think we achieved the goal that we had for this evening to try to lay out the plans for you all and for the community to see. I encourage everyone to recheck these at their leisure. We are going to get them up onto our website. We're aiming for tomorrow. if not Monday, to have them all kind of posted in the same place on the reopening section of the webpage, so that people could take a closer look at them. Again, we will continue to revise as we can, but our hope is to bring these back December 10 for the board to give us a decision on where you'd like to see us land so that we can continue our momentum forward. And in the meantime, we'll continue to do the work that we're doing with distance learning and making it better and better each day, with my deepest regards and thanks to all of our staff for the work that they're doing and for the patience that our parent community continues to exhibit for us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, all those presentations have a lot of time spent on them, and I really appreciate them. We do have to have a plan in place, so the best we can, and it still may change, right? In January or even February, we might have to do another revamping of it. We'll just
do
it as we go. So thank you so much all for the presentations. And again, for the public, just kind of mirroring what Dr. Porter said, this is really just a plan. It's not when we can use it, not something we were saying it's going to happen like on January. It's just a plan. Okay, so we're going to move to our future agenda item. And let's see, was there any future agenda items, Dr. Porter, that you have written down?
I didn't note any, however, certainly am open to it at this point in time.
I had one I wanted to bring up, if I may.
Yeah, Christy, can you hold 1 second? I most importantly forgot our student advisor for the high school plan. Gabby, I wanted to know if you had anything that you wanted to add or share or anything.
Well, the plan's presented very well. I think I have a pretty good understanding of what might be going on. I'm interested to see which plan we would end up going with. I think for me personally, there's definitely pros and cons to each, but I think the most important is whichever would maximize instructional hours. So I guess we'd have to go to the teachers on that, but so that'd be interesting to see.
Okay, well, we're gonna be voting on it on next meeting on the 10th. But again, like I said, it might still change, right? Depending on what's happening at that time. So thank you for that. I didn't want to completely forget you. Okay, going back to future agenda. Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, what I was going to ask for is, I was reading an article earlier this week, and I know we're hearing things are going well, and it's nice to get a general report. I would very much appreciate, and I was thinking maybe end of January, early February, a grade breakdown to how students are actually faring. Are we seeing more students with more Fs with students, more incompletes with students, and how is the overall GPA compare with traditional setting in the classroom?
Can that be included in the COVID report out?
I don't think it has to have to do with COVID. I just think it's us looking at academically, how are our students faring? I'm not worried about the elementary, it would be middle school and high school. I mean, the hard data for how things are going.
Okay.
Even first quarter, second quarter, what we're seeing, what are the trends?
I think we can work on that for you, Trustee Dawson.
I don't know about timing, Ralph. I don't want it to be too overwhelming, but I think it's always good to see DNFs, where are they? How are students faring?
Yeah, and I think I agree. We can certainly, because we're doing our best to monitor and track that carefully. I think the one variable that, not that I want to speak to this evening, but one variable that comes into play that I want to try to figure out how we put it into this is that it's sort of that social emotional component to it. How much of that is affecting progress for students, and because we have to factor that in a little bit in the work that we're doing. So anything that we produce would certainly be just really raw academic data. Let us work on that, and we'll see what we can come up with that's meaningful for you, and certainly get where you're aiming. So
thank you.
Okay, and we're shooting for January, February time.
Yeah, and the fastest would be end of January, of course.
Okay, John.
I have no future agenda items. I'd like to piggyback slightly on what Ms. Dawson just said. Ralph, if you do that, one of the open items for our learning at the high school is APs. And if there's any update on how those are actually going to commence this year, it'd be appreciated. You can include that in that, or just send out a note, actually be fine.
Okay, I think I'll work with Principal Garcia and Vice Principal Steinbach on that one.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian, anything for your future?
Nothing for future agenda items from me. Thank you.
Okay, and we have public comment from Carolyn Swanson.
Hello again. I have a list of future agenda items, actually, believe it or not.
Okay.
So I did hear us talk tonight about possible board policy on homework. Maybe that's something we'd like to address soon or in the future. That's one. Two is, since distance learning is continuing, can we have the Chromebook distribution? I know we have a whole fleet of new Chromebooks. I think now that we're seeing distance learning is continuing, can we have a distribution plan brought before the board to take action on? All I could find is that we ever did one information discussion on it, but I think that devices will improve distance learning for our families. So I wanted to ask for that as number two. Trustee Dawson, I was actually going to ask for the same thing about grades, and I don't know if this goes with it or not, but I had grades and enrollment levels. We heard about enrollment at the very beginning of the year, how it had dropped at certain sites. And I'm curious if we're losing any other families since that time. That's number three. And then if we have if we could have a survey go out to families or something so that we can get a gauge on what's going on at the elementary level for distance learning, and we can have that come back and be presented as a future agenda item. I'd like to hear about that. I haven't seen a survey come out from our school, so we're far into the year and we haven't had one. So I think that can kind of get that rolling. And lastly, I've been, I don't know if this is a board policy or not. So of course, whatever you say, but if we can review the instructional minutes across our, for elementary across the grade levels, so that we're making sure that they're similar, so that they're aligned. I realize maybe there'll be more synchronous at a certain grade level, but there's some big disparities that are happening. And I think that we should just have our eyes on that to make sure that all of our students are getting equitable time. Thank you. That was a long list.
It was asked and answered today.
Yeah,
What's that,
it was. Dr. Porras, some of that would be included in our COVID report out.
Yeah, I'm looking at them now. I think I need a little bit more detail just so we know how to agendize this. First off, it'd be helpful to have some expected dates that we'd like to see these come, just because we have want to add this to the queue, and then if I can fold any into the next the December 10 meeting, I can do that. I'm not sure I'll be able to do most of that, but I think first off, getting some dates on these would be helpful.
The thing about the distribution of computers, my memory is that the tech team, we had a long discussion about it. I want to say maybe 2 months back, and there were different points of view that came up, and there was a vote, I thought, about that we were going to go with what the tech team thought was the best way to handle the computers. So I feel like that was previously decided.
It was.
Yeah, so it's you know, unfortunately, Carolyn, it's before you're on the board, but it was discussed and handled, and that's where we are.
So again, I wanted to time check because we are 1 minute. So let's see. Can we put those on the future agenda and talk about the timeline on the 10th? With whatever you're not able to include in the COVID report out.
Sure, we'll list all of them onto the future agenda without dates, and if we can get some on December the 10th, we will certainly do that. And then the rest of them we'll just have listed and try to set dates.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no other public comment, and that is the end of our meeting. As usual, thank you all for participating and attending, and we will see you on December 10th. And everybody take care, and meeting is adjourned.
Safe and healthy Thanksgiving.
Yes. Oh, yes. Be thankful.
Be thankful.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.